I've got some new whiskies here, but I'm calling them almost new whiskies. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what do I mean almost new? Well, what I mean is I think they are new whiskies. I think they still qualify as new whiskies, certainly in the big scheme of things. But they're not new whiskies as in they've just been released or anything. They're new whiskies because they are new to me. I've just been able to get them. They're being called new, but they aren't really new. Lots of things. Things that mean they are new whiskies, but not really. To a lot of you out there, they won't be new whiskies. They might be whiskies that you've already tried, but I believe so many more of you will not yet have tried these whiskies. However, I'm going to use this whole topic tonight about almost new whiskies to actually build up to a slightly bigger topic to finish on towards the end. As usual, I'll have some nice drams to share, and I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to Thursday night. I hope you're all doing very well. I'm a wee bit out of sorts, bizarrely, because this is the first time that I've been sitting in front of you behind the regular kind of vPub setting for a month. You might remember I had to change everything around to welcome Phil and Deepa at the start of April. Then I took the Easter break, and then I came back and went straight up to Dornoch last week. So that means the last time I've been sitting in front of you is 28th of March. So I built it all back up again. And just before I went live, I realized that the screens are flipped around tonight. Trying to work out what was odd, and I'm controlling things from over here, but the chat's over here tonight. Not that it matters to you or anybody else, but it's too late to change it now. We'll just go with it. Welcome, everyone. I've missed you all. It's been a month, as I say, since I've sat in front of you and kind of just had a wee bit of a solo session, a bottle opening session, a thought piece, whatever it is, and a nice session behind the bar where I can interact with you guys a wee bit more. It's wonderful to have guests. I love having guests. I often have a lot of fun having guests, but it means I think that the interaction with you is a wee bit less. That's okay. I hope you don't mind it from time to time. Anyway, welcome everybody. Nice to have you back to regular Thursday night programming. Cheers. I'm going to, I think, probably get through 5 almost new whiskies. I've got a 6th, potentially a 7th, honestly. But I think 5 will probably be enough because tomorrow, I'm not doing the school run or anything tomorrow, but I am up fairly early to get organised and out the door because this is the Limburg Whisky Festival weekend. This will be our 3rd year, I think. The 3rd time that we've headed over to Limburg. I think it's the 6th time I've managed to make a German whisky festival. Really always looking forward to this. Limburg's become a wee bit of an annual event. I know that so many of you are heading over there. I'm going to get a chance to bump into you, maybe raise a glass with you, be fantastic, maybe even enjoy some food with you, depending on where you're going to be and what you're doing. I'm super excited about it and really looking forward to it. It's a very, very, for me, quite a unique festival, the Limburg Festival, with so many kind of geek-focused whiskies there. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Regardless, before we get there, I've still got some work to do with you tonight. Work with a very small W, and that's to get through some whiskies that I consider new for various reasons, but I'm calling them almost new, and I have to kind of justify that to you tonight, why I'm calling them almost new, and hopefully give you something interesting to think about. A lot of these whiskies will be parochial, let's say. They will be limited availability. They may have already been sold out. They may be hard to get. They may be just available in certain markets. The usual caveats apply. But the bigger thing that I'm going to discuss tonight kind of overlaps heavily with that, but we'll get to that. There's some whiskies to be uncorked and some drams to be had before then. I hope you're all comfortable. I hope you've got something in the glass. I hope we are able to sit down and relax for a wee bit of sacrosanct whiskey time on a Thursday night. But before we get into it all, I'll do what I always do and jump in and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. How are we all? I noticed all the orange flickering past as I was gabbering there. I'll cycle back a wee bit and see what I can catch. Dave Barnes is saying, just dropping in to say hi. I have to work tonight. Oh, so sorry, Dave. He says, I'll catch up tomorrow morning on replay. Very interested to see what the lineup is going to be tonight and have a great show. Yeah, I was debating just kind of putting the lineup out there. It's, you know, sometimes I think it's not because I'm trying to tease or it's clickbait or anything like that by disguising what I'm going to be sharing with you. There's a wee bit of kind of building up a sense of mystery or whatever, but it could be that somebody could just glance through the lineup and decide that there's not really something they're interested in and maybe check out or something. But honestly, the real reason I do it is because I want the flexibility to change my mind right at the last moment. I found something that's a wee bit more interesting to talk about or something like that. So, Dave, you will be able to see what it is by tomorrow. I'm pretty committed to the 5 bottles now. Yeah, hopefully there's some interest there for you, buddy. Greetings, Roy, says Gene Kelly, and fellow malt wanderers. Raising a glass to one and all. I raise a glass right back at you, Gene. Nice to have you in, my friend. Always wonderful to welcome you. Cracking name. Jerry Miller is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see you, Jerry. I hope you're keeping well, my friend. And Jimmy Jazz is saying, good evening, Aquavite. Enjoying a neck pour from the Michael Tor Turbo, almost new. Where are you tonight? Are you coming in from the northeast, Jimmy? It's a shame that I'm not going to be able to see you in Germany this weekend. McCallum Fine and Rare, Doc is here. Good to see you, my friend. How are you keeping? I'm going to get a chance to... Doc is shouting, I am Wook. That would be pretty funny, Doc. I'll get a chance to raise a glass for you this weekend, hang out with you. Big hugs, looking forward to it, buddy. Can't wait. It's only a day away, one more sleep until all the fun starts for another Limburg weekend. Good to have you in. Mirko is saying, good evening, Roy. Good evening, Barflies. Looking forward to seeing some of you in Limburg. Mirko, I'm looking forward to seeing you too. We've already met, my friend, but that was in Scotland. Be nice to meet you on your home soil. Hellswood is saying, evening, Roy. Probably won't be here for the duration, but we'll catch up what we miss on the replay. Signal, I did read in the comments earlier tonight, Helen, that you're a wee bit poorly. Let's raise a wee glass to you, and maybe Andy's poorly too, given the condition that you have, and wish you a speedy recovery and all the best. Sorry, and if you do need to check out Helen, we completely understand. Cheers to you. You must be feeling miserable. Tim Powell's is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see you, Tim. We've been in touch recently on Patreon. Thank you for stepping up and supporting me there, Tim, as well. Wonderful to have you join us tonight. And Danny Keenan is saying, good evening, Roy, and all the barflies. Good to see you, Danny. You star. One of the bottles that you managed to pick up for me, I'm going to take over and share with our pals in Limburg. Good evening, Roy and fellow barflies, says Des. Good to have you in. And Molasses Mike is saying, I can't afford to be Wook. I think that's very, very true. This mystery Wook character is puzzling us all. It's starting to become starting to be something that's discussed outside of the vPub too. Nevertheless, I hope he's working well within his means, or she is working well within her means. They are working well within their means. And just enjoying the content and getting some kind of value out of it. Craig Wells is saying, evening, Aquavite and Barflies, delving into my more premium whiskies this evening, as I'm celebrating since I had my offer accepted on buying my first house. Slanjavat all. Craig Willis, I wish you all the very best for it, and I hope it looks after you well. Well done. It's always good to have an offer accepted. Well done, Craig. Cheers. I wonder where you're moving to. James DeJulio is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 15 months. He's saying plus 12 more. Barfly forever. Terrific stuff, James. And I know that sometimes if it lapses or something like that, it gets reset and you go back to the original wee navy blue Barfly. But you've already made it up to a gold Barfly. And Herben Luwak, I always make a mess of your name, I'm sure, my friend. But he's also celebrating being a Barfly for the last 5 months, saying good evening, Barflies, as well as David Evans celebrating being a Barfly for 48 months. And he's got his pink Barfly to the next 4 years. Keep up the great work. David, with your help, my friend, it'll be an absolute pleasure. The Barflies are the YouTube subscription model here. So if you're watching this on Android or desktop, whatever, you've got a join button underneath, and that's $1.99 of whatever your currency is local to where you are. $1.99 gets you access to all the Barfly themed, channel themed whiskey emoji, to help you color up the chat and things, as well as the Barfly loyalty badge thing I've been talking about. But the most important thing that it does is it means that I'll never switch on monetization. And for vPub and Aquavitae content on this channel, you'll never need to sit through ads. I don't monetize anything these days. I like it that way. Clit's the same. Good evening, Roy. I hope I'll be able to join in with a dram later. But for starters, you'll be my background entertainment while I finish tidying up the apartment. I hope that it works, Clitz. I think I'm a better cure for insomnia than I am for motivation to help you tidy up. But if it works for you, buddy, it's nice to have you enlisting with me in the background. Max is saying, good evening from the Crichtoners. Cheers to you, my dear friend. We'll miss you all at the weekend. Max has been able to join us at previous Limburg events, but he's not been able to participate this year. Max, you will be missed. And we'll raise a glass for you too. Our pal Falsgraf is not going to make it this year either. So we'll need to raise a glass for missing friends. Alan Smith is saying, evening, Roy. You're looking well. Thank you very much, Alan. I've managed to get out and get a wee bit of sunshine. Maybe it's the vitamin D. The sun's actually poked out its head in recent days in Glasgow, and it's been fantastic to see it. Julian Rickman is saying, evening, Roy, evening, Barflies. Spring is in the air. Looking forward to tonight after missing last week and being in the amazing Campbelltown. Hey, if you're going to miss a vPub and if you have to be somewhere, let it be a place like Campbelltown, right, Julian? It's nice to have you in tonight. It's good to see you. Peter is saying, good evening, Roy. And Karsten is saying, hey, Roy, it's my first time in Limburg this year. Looking forward to so much to it. Peter and Frank, you're coming this year, right? Are you? Maybe not. I get confused. And Karsten we're going to be able to meet up with each other this weekend. That's pretty fantastic. Superb. Roman is in. Roman's okay. Skovranek, I think it's Skovranek. Roman, I know you've stepped up recently to be a patron. He's saying, evening, Roy, looking forward to meeting you in Limburg. Fantastic, Roman. It'd be wonderful to shake your hand and raise a glass there. Starting to build, right? There's more and more Barflies heading to Limburg now. Maybe they were always there, but we just didn't always get a chance to meet together. Herman Blocker, I've met him in Limburg. He's saying, yes, that is it, the third time. Fantastic, Herman. I'll look forward to seeing you over there. And James DeJulius, sooner or later, you'll be talking German. It's amazing how little German you pick up because of how well the Germans speak English. They make it very easy for us to be lazy. The Ginger Genius is saying, evening, Roy, looking forward to a chilled evening tonight. Me too, Ginger Genius. A good way to look at it. I hope I keep it fairly chilled. Maybe a mini rant later on, but not too much. And Drew from Arizona, good to see you, buddy, is saying, today is the return of my driving privileges after 90 days, and I chose a new whiskey to me to celebrate that you may know, a 35-year-old Brora sample received from a very special friend. Oh my goodness. Let's raise a wee glass to you getting your health back, you getting your driving privileges back, and you having a 35-year-old Brora in the glass. Cheers to you, Drew. Cheers to you. I think the friend that you mentioned is a mutual friend, right? What a guy. Rick Johnson is saying, good afternoon. Rick, that just jumped. I will try to scroll up and figure out where that was coming in from. Oh, wow, I've missed so much. Rick, I hope you're in for the night and I can catch your comment a wee bit later, buddy. I do apologise for that. Alistair Gray celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 50 months. Dornoch to Limburg, jealous. I know, it's just the way it worked out. You're just trying to schedule that Dornoch thing. It was just, I knew it was going to be the week before I went to Limburg. I was originally planning to go to Limburg a day early this year and arrive on the Thursday, but that meant missing 2 vPubs in April. So yes, at least we're able to do it tonight, Alistair. It's nice to welcome you in and thanks for your support. And Herben is gifted 5 Aquavitae Barfly memberships for anybody that wants to take them up on the offer. Thank you, Herben, for your generosity. And James DeJulius bought me a dram to say, still not wrong on beer barley. Quiz answer. Fantastic. Listen, if there's any ambiguity, confusion, mistakes, or nonsense, just general shenanigans with any of the quiz questions or answers at the quiz at the end, you know the rule. Take the point. Just take it. Everyone gets a freebie, especially if it's me that makes a bit of mistake. There is a quiz at the end tonight, of course there is. I have tried to... I'm mindful of how tricky they are. And I just sat, as I was setting up tonight and getting tidied up, I sat through Greg's Whiskey Guide, his YouTube channel. He puts out content in French, and he puts out a lot of whiskey content in English. And him and Menno, yes, the quizmaster, the Lord Asshat himself, got together for a live stream recently on Greg's channel, and they did a quiz at the end, because obviously Menno was on, right? But Menno was participating, he was not hosting. I scored, I think it's 6 out of 10. Where's my scores? I threw away the piece of paper and discussed, I think, well, maybe I got a 7. I think it was 6 out of 10. I barely made a pass mark. So if you're after something challenging, a tricky quiz, go over to Greg's Whiskey Guide and give that quiz at the end a wee try. The blind challenge live stream that he put out, I think he just put out last night, him and Menno. So you can pick that up on Greg's Whiskey Guide channel a wee bit later. Christopher Malloy is here saying cheers. Hope everyone is well. Christopher Malloy, it's so wonderful to welcome you here, my friend. He's bought us a wee dram. I'm very well. I hope you're keeping well too. I feel like there's quite a few names around the community that feel like they've just been around forever. And when I say forever, I mean before I was even making or putting out content. And I would have to say that Christopher Malloy is one of those names. Great to welcome you into vPub Whiskey Games. My pal Matt Bishop is here too, buying me a dram, saying, can you raise a glass for fellow Barfly Ali, the Peruvian tour guide at Springbank that made me really welcome there 2 weeks ago. Not only is he a fellow Barfly, he's a patron supporter, he's just a wonderful energy, just a fantastic guy. I'll be happy to raise a glass to him, Matt, to raise a glass at you as well, Christopher Malloy and James DeJulio. James, Christopher, Whiskey Games, and our pal down at Springbank Ali. Cheers to you all. Right, I'm going to do my best. I've got a big, massive chat window open tonight. Rob Smith is saying, I guess I'm getting a 10 out of 10 tonight. Love the optimism, Rob. Love it. I hope there's a decent chance that we get a 10 out of 10 tonight. Excess to Scotch is saying, good evening, Roy. Glad to be back live in the vPub in Slancher. Slancher to you, Excess to Scotch. Is it Claudius? It's wonderful to have you. Ben Demon Hunter is saying, Slancher Varoy and all fellow Barflies. Ben, fantastic to welcome you in. Again, one of those names that's been around for as long as I can remember. You were right about the local barley 13. What a belter, says Teddy KGB. I'm amazed that you've been able to get it, Teddy. That's fantastic that you've got it and that you're enjoying it. I think it's one of the best that they've had. You know, in terms of balance, I don't think it goes in any extreme. In terms of cask maturation I'm talking about, I think it's just a nicely balanced thing. And I also think as I sip it, it sips a wee bit even older in some respects than 13 years old. It's pretty good stuff. France G is saying good evening. Aquavite and all, wrapping up some work and listening in before pouring a dram, but made it live today. I usually catch on the replay. Franz, fantastic. Always brilliant to be able to welcome you in live. But also anybody that is picking this up on the replay, thank you very, very much for your support. Leave a wee like. It goes a long way to letting everybody feel like it's a worthwhile use of their time to get past this kind of introduction bit and then get into actually talking about the whiskies and talking to each other about them. Why do I always do it? Where are we at now in terms of time? We're sitting here at 19 minutes in. And that's usually what I aim for. I've kind of got this feeling for a sense for about 20 minutes in, 15 to 20 minutes, because if you ever see the retention curve on YouTube, you know, you can see it. You can see the live numbers that are participating. We kind of go live about 100. It climbs up to about, or we've broken 300 now. And that kind of, that's where we are at after about 15 or 20 minutes in. That's why I do it. Just get everyone settled, pour your dram, get your feet up, get relaxed. Then we can launch into the topic. If you're picking this up on replay, hopefully I've had time, although I'm going away early in the morning, so maybe not. Most of the time I do chapter markers, so you can skip ahead and just go to the bits that you're most interested in. Express viewing. Graham Young is joining me tomorrow in Limburg. He come all the way over from Canada for it. He's saying good evening, Aquavite. Cheers. And so glad to see you here tonight. Fun awaits this weekend. Here's to some fun, Graham. Wonderful to have you. Whiskey Wings is in, celebrating being a supporter of Barflies for 36 months. You superstar, and he's saying single parent tonight, so only got a few minutes. I know the feeling. I know the deal. I get it. Do what you can. Family comes first, big guy. Thank you for dropping in, and thanks for celebrating being a member of the Barflies. Good to have you. That's Mike from the Honest to a Malt podcast. Mike and Duncan bring us a podcast fairly regular. It's almost once a week, certainly more regular than the Dramface content. But it's always good to welcome you in. Fantastic. All right, let's get on with the topic for tonight. All of these whiskies are new to me. None of these whiskies are, strictly speaking, new to anyone. However, I had a bottle sitting on the side. I've been desperate to open it. A bottle that was recommended to me by a few people reaching out saying this is available, you should pick it up. One of them was Jason, Whiskey Rover Jason, who reached out to say you should really try this. So it's been sitting there, but I've just been kind of waiting for the right moment. Is it going to be something open on a vPub? Is it just going to be something open with friends? Something open just alone, whatever. But I realised it would be something to talk about. It would be something quite interesting to share with everyone. But I didn't have a way to kind of shoehorn it in. And then a few other bottles came along very recently that kind of went, well, there's a bit of a theme there. And that's what I like to do with the vPub topics, is that I've got a kind of idea what's in the road ahead. When I come back next week, hopefully Roddy and I are getting together to have a Roddy vPub. But I always like to have the flexibility to be able to swap it out. So I tend to only start to promote or release a vPub maybe 2 or maximum 3 days before we go live, because it's kind of nice to just not necessarily be up to speed with something that's happening at that moment in time. It's not about being contemporary or on the pulse or anything. It's about doing and talking about the things that I want to talk about. So that bottle, combined with a couple other bottles that came into the vPub, made me think, this is a good idea, because then I get to talk about the thing I'm going to finish talking about tonight. Okay, let's get the first one up and ready. I'll tell you what's in the glass right now, and we might make a bit of a, this isn't a new whiskey, it's not new at all, but just something to welcome all of you in. I've been enjoying a wee Loch Lomond in Schmurren, and that's been on the back of a Loch Lomond Steam and Fire that I had while I was setting up tonight. I just had a wee tablespoon of each in the glass. I poured a wee bit of a bigger dram here to welcome you all in. And it's just cracking value whiskey. Just very good, 46% unchilled filtered whiskey that we can kick back with and enjoy. The retail in this is 45, but it tends to be a wee bit cheaper. Really enjoying. But I'm going to push that to the side because we're going to have our first wee uncorking. And I'm going to caveat that, like I always do. It's got one of those cellophane seals. When you're doing an uncorking, it's really a reaction thing. It's just a first impression. It's a neck pour. It's really, you would not be being fair to any bottle of whiskey, I think, if you just uncorked and reviewed straight away. However, to suggest that you can't really get anything from an uncorking or a first pour is just as disingenuous as trying to review it on a neck pour. Most of the whiskey will be made available to you from the neck pour. Some whiskies really do blossom and open up with a little bit of time in the glass, and some whiskies do blossom and open up with a wee bit of time in the bottle. However, it would be my choice to properly review a whiskey after the bottle's been open, after you've had a dram or two at least, and maybe even arguably once it starts to drop over the shoulder, once there's a couple of 3 drams out of it. It's not based on anything scientific, just experience and feeling and the sense that you get when you're enjoying whiskies. Anyway, the one I'm just about to open is a new whiskey. It's Strathearn's inaugural release. This is just brand new. It only came out, I think, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe. And I was able to pick up 2 bottles of this. I gifted one on the live stream last week. When I was up at the Dornoch distillery, I gave it to Simon and Phil Thompson, and I gave it to them for a very specific reason. That they have quite a connection with Strathearn. You might remember we shared last week that before Dornoch distillery even existed, Simon was given access to Strathearn in order to do some prototype, as he called it, distilling in down at Strathearn. So it was a fantastic opportunity for him. And that bottle, that bottling, after it was 10 years ago he did that, because they've just bottled it for friends. So it was the kind of pre-Dornoch that was actually made at Strathearn. So they've got that connection there. So it just made sense for me to try and pick up an extra bottle of this. A good chance that those guys wouldn't have had it already and take it up, and it was the first time they tried it. So it went down quite well. I have to say that it was a neck pour last week, and it's going to be a neck pour this week. But my memory is that I was quite impressed. But anybody that's been around whiskey for long enough will know that, I mean, if you go onto Whiskey Base and type in Strathearn, you're probably going to get 100 responses, right? And there's been lots of Strathearn out there. I mean, admittedly, a lot of it's going to be private cask bottlings and things like that. But official bottlings, there have been at least one, potentially two, and some single casks and various things. And even Strathearn released from Douglas Lane through, I don't know if it's Provident, probably Old Particular or something like that, I'm not sure, but one of their independent bottling labels, they've also released Strathearn in the past. However, I have never picked it up. And they are calling this, and I think justifiably, in some respects, they are calling this their inaugural. Why? Because the majority or a fair amount of the liquid that's in this bottle is their liquid since they took over the distillery in 2019. It's quite an interesting wee bottling. It's exclusively made from Maris Otter barley. It's not typical, it's not common. Certainly it's not common to know that the whiskey that you're sipping is made from Maris Otter. It's fully natural. They tell you on the label, no colouring, non-chill filtered, 50% ABV volume. So it's got a good strength about it. And I picked this up for £85, I think. So just on the limit of probably what I'd be willing to pay for, I mean, we don't know the actual age of this, do we? But we believe it to be in the order of 4 and 5 year old whiskey. I think maybe 5 years old. It's made from a selection of 32 Strathearn casks, a mix of virgin oak, a mix of bourbon, and a mix of sherry. But I have to say I was quite impressed, although I was distracted when I was sipping it last week when I was hanging out with Phil and Simon. I was quite impressed, and those guys were too. I think it's got a very modern nose. It's got lots of that kind of vanilla caramel sweetness, a lot of, you know, the toffee and butterscotch thing. And I remember picking up last week as well, and it's here again. There is a farmy nature to it. In a farmy, I don't kind of mean a dry hayloft type way. I'm speaking about maybe an outdoor farm. Outdoor aroma, outdoor grass, outdoor hay, certainly something farmy. There's quite ripe fruit here too, and a pastry, bready element. Quite a modern whiskey profile with lots of kind of fermentation notes. That might be a theme tonight. Dough, bready, pastry, sweet, mango, dried mango, ripe, syrup, custard, sweet desserts, that kind of thing. Looking for floral elements, looking for spice, maybe a wee bit of ginger, a wee bit of stem ginger or something. Cheers, everyone. Oh, aye. The ABV is helping here a lot of texture, quite bold. It's coming in with a lot of spice, and I genuinely don't think the spice is coming from from the youth, it's not all. I mean, there is a wee bit of youth there, but it's very well put together. There's nothing here that you would pick this up and sip and say, "Oh, this is young whiskey." I think it's got nice vibrance to it. It's got quite a finish. It's just a nice texture, a nice kind of fizz and grip to things. You could. I think there is quite a bit of cask influence here. There's a lot of kind of oak notes, and the spice in here, you could argue, is from the cask too. And maybe the fermentation notes, the bready notes, and the fruit and the sweetness coming from spirit, maybe. In Strathearn, we have a tiny distillery. To put it into perspective, I don't know what they're actually making. I don't know if they've ever hit 100,000 litres per annum. But when you consider that Daftmill is in the order of about 60,000, where we were last week up at Dornoch, they're at 10 or 12,000. Really, really tiny scale. So Strathearn are a few times larger than that. So I have confidence that these guys are going to have the ability to continue a core range. I do have a concern that if their inaugural comes out at 85, where is their core range going to be priced? We have to remember that it's young whiskey at the end of the day. I would hope that as they follow this up, I mean, I don't know how many bottles were yielded from 32 casks, but I think it was quite a few thousand in the end. I think it's mostly sold out if you're after this. It is a recommend. Honestly, I think it would be a really nice bottle for you to have. £85, it's a wee bit pricey, but I think it's nice because this is a new chapter in Strathearn's history. This is under the ownership of Douglas Laing now. Douglas Laing have had a bit of a really cold start with the plans for Clutha and Glasgow. That's kind of hit the beach, hasn't it? So it's kind of nice that they've got this distillery in the Southern Highlands up in Perthshire at Strathearn. And now we can actually taste a vision that Douglas Laing have for their whiskey that they're distilling. And it's decent. The ABV is definitely helping here. It's helping with the finish, certainly. It's helping with lots of things. But £85 is just pushing it a wee bit high. However, we've seen some stupidity in whiskey, and we've seen people pushing it even higher than that. So I have to say that probably what Douglas Laing have done, very nice bottle, custom cork, everything like that. It's all very acorn and feeling, even the kind of shape of the bottle and things. They've gone for a whole acorn feel. All of it is just kind of based on that inspiration of an acorn, isn't it? I would say that we are playing for a semi-luxury product, certainly a niche product. The packaging is nice. I hope, though, that longer term, to bring us kind of more core range whiskies, that they've got something where the pricing is a wee bit sharper and more on point. It's good to recommend it as an inaugural to anyone who's interested. If it continued at that price point, I think I would struggle a wee bit. Needs to be a wee bit keener on price. However, I'll caveat that with the reminder to everyone that for a distillery of the scale that they are, there's never going to be a lot of liquid around. Daftmill is tiny. They're putting their product out at £100 a bottle. But we need to remember that Daftmill is rarely younger than 12 years old. This is half the age of that and then some. So I think the price point is a bit rich. We'll give them a buy for their inaugural. But I'm also very, very pleased with just how good a dram it is. It is very ripe. There is a modern whiskey style that's happening right now, and it's because of, my opinion here, people pushing the fermentation times out. People realizing just how much more flavor, how much more fruit, how much more of those kind of bready, cereally notes, those pastry notes, they can harvest from longer fermentation times. And sometimes I often feel that it comes with a wee bit of a nice kind of effervescence too. And this certainly has that. Certainly has that. Oh dear. Greg's Whisky Guide is saying, for the record, Maris Otter barley is more and more used by some French distilleries, such as the Celtic Whisky Distillery, that make Glenarmore and Cornog. And he's got one of two, so there's another one from Greg I probably have to pick up there. Well, he was typing, he's saying, I think that Michel Couvreau is probably the first indie bottler to have released a bear barley, which obviously Scotch sourced back in around 2008 or 2010, but not sure. No idea of which distillery though. That's right, Michel Couvreau used to pick up their own Clearac, their own new make whiskey. They used to take it to France and mature it in their very, very own kind of very kind of wine-based background style. They were quite innovative for the time, but of course they couldn't sell it as Scotch because it's matured in France. Thanks for that, Greg. Falsgraf is saying over €100 in Germany, even tougher, I'd say. Yeah, like I say, I think there's just not a lot of it. And for everything that Europe seems to get at a cheaper price, there seems to be something else that you're having to pay more for. I would say a rule of thumb, a very blunt rule of thumb way to measure that is the scarce stuff tends to be expensive in continental Europe. And the stuff that tends to be available tends to be cheaper in continental Europe. It's quite a strange one. The Ginger Genius is saying, I'm all for new whiskies, but for the same price, you can get a Speyburn 18. Ginger Genius, I think that that's what all these producers need to remember, because we maybe go along and spend our £85 on a treat bottle like this. But the problem is when we go to repeat that purchase, when we've finished this or we've kind of got to know it, we're after something else. If you go to the shelf and this Strathearn is sitting against its Speyside neighbour of Speyburn 18, and we know how much of a fantastic whiskey Speyburn 18 is for the money, you're going to be tempted to go for the 18-year-old, and rightly so, and who could criticise you? They're going to struggle for repeat sales once that novelty thing is worn off. Like I say, we'll caveat it, we'll give them a buy for their inaugural, their third inaugural, sorry, I don't mean to be cheeky, the Douglas Lane inaugural, and hope that things are a bit better priced in the future. Ryan Sutherland is here. Good to see you, buddy. He's saying, by the way, Falsgraf, Klaus, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to hang with you in Limburg this weekend. I hope I'm able to see you and hook up with you again next year. Sorry you're not making it this year, buddy. Ryan Sutherland is saying, Maris is becoming a common staple in distilling these days. We've done a few 3 to 4 week runs and used a citrus tropical driven yeast with it. Ooh. Can't wait to see what's going to come out of 8 Doors up there in the north of Scotland as well. Lots of people playing with these different barley varietals, playing with the yeast and playing with the fermentation time and seeing what these 3 things are doing together. And more often than not, it's bringing some really quite dense flavours. Going to try very hard to not lean on that dense word. I need to extend my vocabulary a wee bit, but I suspect a lot of the whiskies I'm going to be speaking about tonight are going to be quite dense in nature, and I hope I'm going to be able to articulate what I mean when I talk about that. Maris Otter tends to be a brewer's barley. It's a beer barley, and I don't mean B-E-R-E, I mean B-W-E-R, as I understand it. Welsh Toro's in tonight. Fantastic. God, when are we going to learn that the whiskey industry is ripping us off? Welsh, I hear you, buddy. I hear you. There aren't cartels out there, right? There aren't kind of massive rooms of people all getting together and deciding how much to price whiskey at. But I think every producer looks at it and they decide what can we get away with? What can we charge? What can we get away with? And every producer's got a different ethos. Some producers just don't have much personality or community contact or community shame, no face to lose, and they just brutally go out there and charge whatever let's just charge whatever we want. Others have a much more long-term view, and they price it at a point that we can use to measure all other producers. Arran, Springbank, Ardnamurchan, Glengyle, just as some examples. So if we want to ever measure if we're getting overcharged, look at those producers. However, Welsh, wonderful to have you here always. You're one of those names that's been around forever. When we talk about distilling that's been refined to the point where they are hitting their 400 litres per tonne yield every time. Beyond that, they're just making fantastic, good quality whiskey very, very efficiently. And then we compare it to somebody at the other end of the scale who's basically filling one cask a day, or like the Dornoch, one cask every 3 days. They are not doing the same thing. They are not focused on yield, and the cost is just going to be the cost. So if you want to go up and buy a bottle of Dornoch single malt, you'd be very lucky to be able to do that because it's gone as quickly as it's released. But you'll buy a 50cl bottle and pay £100 for it. But they have made a declaration from the beginning that they are not interested in chasing yield. They're going to make the whiskey and they're going to charge what they need to charge for it. Now, they have got releases that they can make a bit more money on, and they've got releases that they'll put out there with very thin margin. That's their philosophy. We know from their independent bottlings, we know what they do on the SRV5, for example, the BSW 6-year-old, that they are very, very fairly priced as a producer. So we know that this is the cost to make that type of liquid in that environment. And because of the big producers out there, Arran's a great example, Loch, Lomond, others, we know that there's a gradient in between. And when there's things in between that sit far too high on price, we know that that's happening. We know that we're being ripped off. And from then, it's a very deliberate decision to go and buy the liquid, isn't it, Welsh? Peter Lee's in. It's a bit early for you, fella. Hope you've not been working too hard. Good to have you in. I just want to express my gratitude to this whole group for everything it has done for Denise and I. We all owe it to this community. Today we spent a lovely afternoon with Graham Young and Kevin Grant at SMWS. Thank you all. Lots of likes coming in for that comment already. Peter Lee, I'll add my likes to it too. Can I do that? Can I get my mouse over there? There we go. I'll add a wee like to your comment, fella. I would like to raise a glass and well, my gratitude is going to go to the community as well and everything that's brought me, but it's also thanks to you and Denise as well. It's wonderful to have you as part of this community, and your generosity, your sharing, you're making yourself available for everyone, the favours that you do, the way that you facilitate getting whiskey into the people that you know that they're looking for it, and all of these fantastic things. It's very, very bi-directional, buddy. It's a two-way street, and it's fantastic to have you here as well. Here's to you and Denise. Here's to Graham. And here's a wee glass for cousin Kevin, who's now got himself a wee gig in the industry. Cheers to all of you. I'm sad I couldn't join you today. Cheers. My pal Eric Waite is also arriving in Glasgow right about now. He'll be pretty tired after his tour of Scotland, and once more, I'll miss Eric on this tour too. Andy Cross is saying, how many more distilleries would Diageo have to own for them to be classed as a cartel? There's truth in that, Andy. There absolutely is. But, you know, the 29 malt distilleries now. Once upon a time, that would have been a third of all the producing distilleries in Scotland. It's not the case anymore. We're now cruising towards, we're sitting at about 143 now at the latest count. We're cruising towards 150. So they're okay, we're not talking about volumes, we're talking about number of distilleries. There's lots of different ways to measure this. We're talking about value, we're talking about liquid in bottles. There's lots of ways, capacity, lots of ways to measure it. But and I don't want to speak all of it just now, but it's definitely, Andy, going to come into the discussion as we move towards the end of tonight. There is a pretty seismic shift happening in whiskey. And it's happening fast, but it's also happening quite slowly as well. It's one of those things that you'll look back and with the benefit of hindsight, be able to see it much clearer than I think we see it today. George Ellis saying Maris Otter is an older malt with lower extract potential compared to modern distillers malt. It brings a more malt forward note in beer. Do you get that in this, Sean? So he's having a discussion about it too. Thanks for the input there, George. Fantastic. Falscraft is saying, this is the first Douglas Lane whiskey that seems to get over the limit where I find it cheeky. There's some okay, but over budget, but the cheeky thing is regrettable. Well, you know, there are some other inaugurals that have come out and really taken the mick. And I think that they've probably put a lot of money and investment. They've waited since 2019. They've waited 5 years. They're probably looking to make something out of their inaugural, right? If they're going to give up 32 precious casks. It is a very low output distillery, all of these things, but I still have to agree with you. As I've already said, it's pushing the limit of what I'd be willing to pay. Huge thank you for all you both you do for this fabulous community. To Peter Lee from Helen as well. Thank you so much, Helen. And it's good to have you still here. And Keith McKenzie saying, Roy, would you classify Kuboken as a new whiskey? Especially the Creation series, as number 6 has just been released. That's right, number 6. Interestingly, the Kubokens that they're bringing out now that are not finishes, very sneaky. Tomatin's sitting on this. It is Tomatin, right? Okay, it's Kuboken is the brand. It's not peated Tomatin, I know. But it's from that distillery. They're sitting on these stocks of this Highland lightly peated malt, which can be fantastic. What's interesting is that some of it is fully matured, right? We had a 50-year-old Kuboken. I think we've had 2 releases out now, 2 batches, fully matured in sherry casks. All its life in sherry casks. Fantastic. That Creation 6, don't consider that a rum PX finish. That is fully matured in rum and PX casks and then married together at bottling. I don't consider it a new whiskey now. I think it's pretty well established. First Kuboken I remember trying was back in 2015, I think. So they brought it back to life, I think, in about 2008 or something like that. But there's Kubokens kicking about in warehouses from ages ago. If it's been in an ex-peated cask or peated campaigns from the 80s or something, they call that Kuboken too. Yes, it's almost new. Let's call it that. And Welsh is saying, Aquaviti, thanks, mate. We love our whiskey, but that love and the business are 2 different things. Welsh WT, that's either Welsh Toro or Whiskey Tube, is falling out of love with whiskey because of price quality. Imagine. I think it's Welsh Toro. You're not alone, Welsh. The industry is looking at the slowdown that we saw towards the end of 2023 that's continued into 2024. Not for everything and not all of the time. We are not in a crash. We are not in a some kind of nosedive. Whiskey is still a very healthy space. But what they are realizing, I think, is that the COVID years allowed them the ability to get overexcited, to overstretch their imagination, to overstretch what they could ask in terms of purchase price. I think they're having to start to put things on ice a little bit, to pump the brakes a bit there, to play fair again, to go for medium-term, longer-term health of their businesses and the wider industry. Because right now there's just too much overcharging going on. We're calling it out in Dramface. I call it out here regularly. You guys are fantastic at calling it out across here in the comment section and as Barflies in the Facebook page. We work together as a community to work out when something can legitimately ask for a wee bit more money, super small scale, for example, and when something is just a bit rude. And Michael Wood is here. Good to see you, Michael. He's saying, sometimes I've noticed the cask investors are trying to get in front of Dramface in the Google search engine. How do you block this? Well, we can't block it. Dramface does no SEO. So we're coming, if you type in whiskey review, in most countries where we're active, let's say, probably not North America, probably not Asia, but certainly in the UK and now into Europe, when you type in whiskey review into Google, Dramface is popping up. Usually maybe second or third behind Whiskey Base always is going to be first, I think. But depending on your search term, sometimes Dramface can pop up first. We are paying no one for that. We are doing nothing special. It is all what our mechanic Rob likes to call white hat stuff. It's legitimate content, so Google is recognizing that and seeing the interaction, seeing the reciprocal way that everything is connected and it's genuine and legitimate, and they're putting that up there first. If you're getting sponsored ads for cask investment that pop before Dramface, There's virtually nothing I can do about that. That's paid for ads from those cask investment companies. Avoid, avoid, avoid. If you're going to step into cask investment, make sure you do your research, figure out what the legitimate companies that you are. This is not the place to talk about that. I don't get involved in that type of thing. There are other folk out there that do. Road to Dram Alberto is saying Aquavita. Unfortunately, the first release price cheekiness is spreading outside of Scotland. First releases from a new Tuscan distillery here for €145. It's probably a tiny output, isn't it, Alberto? Probably tiny. But it's pricey. It's asking a lot of people. So they'll pick up the local thing. They'll pick up the tourist trade. But what they really need is something that they can do to kind of help them endure. Justin Wan is here. Dramface has been popping up occasionally in Asia too on Google. I can tell you it's going from strength to strength to strength. Fantastic, Justin. Wonderful to have you in as well. I know it's very late in the night for you to be joining, but it's always a pleasure to have you in. And Adwerty, sometimes I read that as Odderty and sometimes Adwerty. Maybe it's two different people. Good to have you here. Saying Dramface appears first for me, but that might be based on my browsing history. Well, what we do is we go on and we open up a guest session so that no one's signed in any account, and hopefully we get a completely clean result. Helen is saying, well, that's us pulling the early parachute. Catch up the rest on the replay. Helen, thank you so much. Here's to you and Andy. Get well soon. Rest easy. That, honestly, price aside, inaugural or not, almost new or new, all of that aside, sweep it to the side, just on the liquid alone, that is a very, very pretty whiskey. It's got that modern lick. It's got a wee note of farminess to it, a wee bit of, I wouldn't go as far to call it dirt or dirtiness, but it's got a wee bit of kind of nice funk, farmyard funk to it. But lots of the ripe fermentation forward flavours in there, a lovely little lick of grip and effervescence, helped by the spice, wood spice, and ABV. £85 is too expensive. What's the right price for this? 55 quid. 50 quid. 55 quid. Honestly, if Ardnamurchan can do it for that age of whiskey, that quality of whiskey, maybe Strathearn can do it. Ardnamurchan's 400,000 litres. Strathearn is 100,000 litres. So, okay. We need to pay a wee bit more. It's going to be far more scarce liquid, but we'll let them away with it for their inaugural. Let's move on. Where will we go? Where will we go? Will we go? So I'm supposed to be using banners here because it helps me keep track and it helps me do the timestamps and things like that. It helps me keep on track on topic. So I've already covered that, the inaugural, right? So what we'll do here is we'll just pretend I brought up that and we'll move on to the next thing. So where am I going to go? Am I going to go up north or down south? Let's go down south first. Let's talk about the almost new because it's completely new to me. Oh, and here they are. Here we have Wook has entered the build. I wonder, there's a wee thought in my head here that Wook, the secretive, elusive Wook, is maybe in Germany, maybe at Limburg this weekend. I'll have someone just walk up to me and say, "Hey Roy, it's me. I'm Wook. Nice to meet you." That would be amazing, and we could work out who they are and what they're all about and all that kind of thing. But the generosity swoops in again once more. This kind of mystical character that's turning up, and I've got this idea that it's my wife or someone that's just been this generous. All sorts of conspiracy theories going about who Wook is. The generosity that he showed last week when we were up at Dornoch was just jaw-dropping. But again, not only is he buying me a very, very generous super chat, a very, very generous dram, but he's also gifting out memberships to all the community too. Exactly the type of thing that we need to try and encourage. Wook, maybe one day you'll let me in on the mystery. I'll raise a glass to you, my friend, whoever you may be. Thank you for your generosity once more. Cheers, Wook. Incredible stuff. Anyway, let's move on to something that's completely new to me. This is an open bottle here. I'm not going to sip this tonight. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to have a wee teaspoon of it just to remind myself. But I was vaguely aware of this distillery, that it was in existence, and I was vaguely aware that there was liquid out there. But I never sought any of it out. I never went after any of it specifically, and I never had any pop up in front of me. So it just kind of passed me by. Um, then when I was up north last week, I was able to pick up a bottle of it. I was able to pick up a bottle of it online too. So I've now got 2 bottles from this very, very small distillery. But on the topic of price, I want to talk about price and talk about capacity versus price. Let's have a wee look at this. This is an English distillery called Circumstance, and they're down in Bristol, one of the coolest towns in England, honestly speaking. This is a single grain. They're calling this the estate, the Circumstance Estate Whiskey. Now, it's called single grain because it's made from malted barley, but it's also got some unmalted barley in there. But it also has some malted rye. And I believe the other grain is malted wheat, I think. Very, very strange mash bill. Very, very strange mash bill. Now, there's not a lot of details on the bottle. Given how cool this is, given the philosophy, the ethos behind this tiny little distillery down in Bristol, the flavour first thing they put on the back. They send you to the website for more details. But Circumstance, it says on the back, is an independent English whisky distillery. We use organic grains, brewing yeast, and extra long open fermentations to make very special whisky. There's that modern theme we're seeing from the boutique craft style distilleries, the extra long fermentations. And in this case, the mash tun, the washbacks, they're going to be keeping them open, no cover over the top. Then they go on to say we use casks from across our warehouses to create our estate single grain whisky. Each cask adds its own uniqueness, but all carry the hallmark flavours for which we are renowned, making this whisky quintessential of our work. So what we have here, and the reason I bought this one, is that it's the closest to our core range. This is completely natural whiskey. It's unchill filtered. It's natural colour. It's at 45% ABV grain whiskey. So there's not going to be a lot of that malted barley there to worry about the clouding effect. But I'm just going to pour a wee teaspoon of this, because my initial reaction was, if only, right? But we'll get to that. Again, that really this is much more fragrant. There's a kind of floral element there. But that really kind of fermentation forward note just pops right out the glass. It is not as compact, it is not as dense, and it's not as funky as that Strathearn. This is a much more deliberate whiskey, I think. Balanced. It's actually a wee bit better than I remember. Alistair Gray, hold your thought, my friend. I love being into whiskey. This is a good time to be into whiskey. We can't buy these ancient, wonderful gems that were forgotten about and that were a product of a whiskey Loch, a whiskey disaster, really. Just things that were left because nobody wanted them ended up producing marvelous, marvelous stuff that everyone was able to enjoy at cheap prices 20 years ago. Well, those days are gone, long gone. For any of that magical liquid, we're paying through the nose for it today. Why? Because it's scarce now. Right now, under our noses, we have scarce whiskey. There is whiskey we can go out and buy that there is not a lot of it in existence. Now, it might not be as exciting because it doesn't have the romance of those old whiskies that I'm speaking about, the forgotten whiskies, the rediscovered whiskies. But there's a whole new take on it, a whole new romance. And it's happening under our noses right now. There is not a lot of this liquid going about. So how much do you think I paid for a bottle of this from Circumstance Distillery in Bristol? £38. £38. And this is the closest that I've seen to a core range from them. Now, there are other products. They're not always whiskey. Be careful, they're not always whiskey. Some, because they, depending on the age they release it at, because of the mash bill, because of the way they've produced it, they're not under the same laws as Scottish production, of course. But they don't label it as whiskey, so they'll call it barley spirit or something else. But all of the circumstance releases I have seen have been very inexpensive. This makes me very, very keen. For £38, that is terrifyingly delicious, well-made whiskey. It's a wee bit of youth. It is just, there is just that wee bit of kind of new make sweetness to it, but it's tiny. Lovely spice, lovely texture, ridiculously good whiskey, especially given it's at 45% ABV. That might put a lot of people off. Please don't be put off by that ABV in this instance. Don't judge it by the malt measuring stick. Terrific, terrific stuff. But I wanted to know, let's finish this wee sip. I'll rinse this glass. Not that it matters too much because I'm going to pour some more circumstance liquid into this glass. Alistair Gray asked a question. He said, did you get to try the Thompson Brothers circumstance bottle? 3-year-old grain that's amazing. Ian Bruce is saying, I think Wook could be based in Ireland. Could be, Ian. Could be anywhere in Europe. Rico, my pal Rico, good to see you, Rico. Rico Donator celebrating being a member for 40 months. And he's saying, thanks for having me, Rico, my friend. Thank you for enduring me. Wonderful to have you here and supporting me for 40 months as a patron too, buddy. Thank you. This is the bottle that Alistair Gray is talking about. This is a circumstance 3-year-old. This whiskey is completely new to me. Circumstance Distillery I'm talking about. Very happy with this. Their kind of core range bottle, £38, very reasonably priced. Most of the other whiskies I've poked around and found very reasonably priced too. And this Thompson Brothers bottle, which was a recommendation directly from the brothers themselves, they were quite excited to talk about these guys down in Bristol. This is their bottling of a 3-year-old. This is single grain. So the makeup of this, let's see if it tells us. The Circle whiskey has been created with 85% distilling malt and 15% raw barley. Okay, so we've only got 85% malted barley, 15%. So, I mean, just consider the way that a single pot still Irish is made or something like that. A wee bit similar. A clear wort was fermented using a saison yeast for 10 to 14 days during the summer before distillation in a steel pot. So that, think how significant that is, a steel pot still, with a copper head and neck. So while the base is steel, where you're going to get a lot of the condensation happening, a lot of the reflux happening, is happening with copper. A lot of the condensation is going to be happening in copper. And 4-plate copper column. After a careful 11-hour distillation, the spirit was slowly diluted to 63.5% and was filled into an ex-bourbon cask for maturation. It was filled in July 2020 and it was bottled in March 2024. So it's 3.5 years old and it's from an ex-bourbon. It's very typical Thompson Brothers with all that information and the noise of a tall round. You can't beat it. Here we go. So a tiny wee distillery in Bristol. Neck pour, of course, all the neck pour caveats, straight out of the freshly opened bottle, straight into the glass, not even giving that a minute or anything. This is not the normal way to be drinking whiskey, but I'm live with you. Given the ABV, 57.1, so it's bottled at 100 proof. Given the ABV, it's a wee bit tight on first opening. But what is there is that sense of the word I'm going to try to use sparingly tonight. Density. And it's density of aroma, density of flavour, but a sense that this is not light, fruity, ethereal whiskey. This is quite weighty, engaging, round, bold, thick whiskey. Cheers, everyone. Okay, this is not Scotch. Thank goodness for that. This is 3-year-old grain whiskey. Lots and lots of dried fruits, but don't consider dried fruits in the kind of Christmas cake sherry realm. Dried fruits. The dried fruits that we've got here is like dried mango, dried pineapple, dried pear. Those kind of light white dried fruits, lightly sweet. I suspect that this is going to do well with a wee drop of water in it too. This is incredible. There is not a chance that if you've been drinking whiskey over the last 10, 20 years, more or less, anywhere in between, you could pick this up blind, sip it and say, yeah, it's raw 3-year-old whiskey. There is so much poise to this, so much balance, so much flavor, so much togetherness. There is no sense of malt, sweet, boiled sweets. There's nothing that new make gives you. This is together whiskey. Thank goodness that there's not much of it. I should clarify what I mean by that. I think you can only make whiskey like this, with this amount of flavour, this amount of engagement, when you're doing it on a very, very small scale. How you could upscale this, how you could make whiskey like this. I paid 60 pounds for this, 55, 65, somewhere in that order. I don't even remember now. I don't have my receipt handy either. I bought this at Thompson Brothers bottle shop last week because the chance to try a cask strength circumstance distillery was very appealing. When they recommended it, doubly so. Fantastic. Fantastic. Alistair Gray, you're absolutely right. I don't know what the word Alistair used. He said that's amazing. You're absolutely right. It is amazing. Whiskey Weekend Dram Harrow is here saying sipping Kilkerran peated and thinking that I'm finally visiting the distillery next week. Oh, wow, Harrow, you're getting to go to Campbelltown. That is amazing. I hope you're taking everything else that's to enjoy in Campbelltown as well. It's a bit of a whiskey wonderland. You've got Cadenhead, you've got Glengyle. Of course, you're going to see, you've got Springbank and you've got Glen Scotia. I hope you enjoy it, buddy. And the pubs and the nightlife and everything else. Good food down there too. Sandro Fazzolari saying, what's the ABV in the 3-year-old grain dram? It's 57.1, 100 proof, Sandro. Good to see you in, my friend. So there's plenty punch to it. So that 45%, and getting to the mash bills are going to be a wee bit different here, of course. This is just barley in this, whereas there's rye and wheat in the other one, in the core range release. But it's nice to kind of get that much more amped up, much more kind of punchy take on it. This is I should have bought 2 of these. I don't know if I would have been allowed to buy 2 of them, but my goodness. What a fantastic whiskey. Sip by sip. And the price. So when we talk about the scarcity, when we talk about the ability to charge a premium for an inaugural, or the ability to charge because there's just so little of it, and then you look at distilleries like this, that really you have to go and seek out. But when you do seek them out, they are not expensive. Welsh Toro, this is the antidote you're looking for. I don't know if you can purchase this online, buddy, but I tell you what, Welsh, if you go out and you pick up this 3-year-old Circumstance distillery, I think it was about somewhere in the order of £60, 57.1% ABV, buy it, open it, taste the dram. You don't like it, I'll give you full price and I'll pay your shipping to get a second bottle of it, buddy. I can't say fairer than that, because that is a cracking glass of whiskey. Crazy that it's not even malt whiskey. It's everywhere. I'm going to pour just a wee drop more. I don't need to finish it, right? I'm curious. Pour a wee teeny drop more. And I'll get a water dropper. And I'll just put a wee drip of water in. See how we go. Okay, it seems to have brought up a bit of spice, floral spice, lilies, fresh lilies. But everything else is still there. The breadiness, the fermentation side. Oh, forgive me, a banana skin. Literally banana skin, like green banana skin, fresh banana peel. Wow, vivid, freshly peeled banana. Incredible. Oh, just, my goodness. Really enjoyed what I've opened so far. But that takes, that it's so attention grabbing. It's so compelling. It's so kind of, honestly, what I don't actually know. I'm out. I don't have words to describe how amazing that is for 3 years old. And the price point as well. Forget about it. It's just fantastic. Alistair's saying in stock at Royal Mail Whiskies for 55 quid. It really is something special. That is an absolute bargain, Alistair. Helen Hamish is saying the grain train is the train less travelled. Absolutely. But I think we need to separate what we know as grain as Scotch whiskey, especially Scotch malt whiskey drinkers. What we know as grain, Scotch single grain or blended grain or grain whiskey, is not this. It's slightly different. This is called grain because they have to call it grain. You know, it's 85% malt, 15% unmalted barley. So grain, you know, we need to. It's going to be a while before we all relax a wee bit about that grain word. Ian Bruce is saying Aquavite, a tip-top toddler dram. 3 years old, literally is a toddler. I'm going to leave that and come back to it a wee bit later. It's going to be amazing. So, you all know about integrity on this channel, and you all know that I don't accept freebies and gifts and things. I've become very, very good at being polite about that these days. And what's really quite nice is when those anonymous bottles turn up at the door just with a delivery note and nothing else, no other context or anything. What's nice is now I've got dram face. So what I tend to do is I just body swerve it. I just kind of send it on to another dram face reviewer for them to review it. And they have no, there's no expectations. There's no implication. There's nothing. They can tell me that it's a poor bottle or a fantastic bottle, and anywhere in between, and it doesn't matter, and nobody's offended. And that's the way I like to handle things. So when people tend to offer me discounts or freebies or gifts or that, I tend to say, thank you, but understand what I do and the independent thing and everything. It makes it a bit awkward and uncomfortable, but take a minute to explain to them and they understand and it's fine. However, I've relaxed a wee bit in recent years because I didn't even join clubs and societies and loyalty programs and things, because I saw that as being kind of on brand a little bit, which is silly, because the reason that I look after my independence is that I want to put myself in a position to be as close to the punter as possible, so that I'm paying the same prices as you. I'm going through the same pains to try and get a hold of the whiskies that you are. But you can join these loyalty clubs and programs, these societies, these whatever they may be, whether it's an email newsletter or a legitimate kind of fan club type thing where you get exclusive access to whiskies and things. So I've started to do that, but do it as a consumer and not do it as aquavitae, right? However, last week, the Thompson brothers gifted me a bottle. I would usually say, oh, thank you very much, but, I'll give it to somebody else. But I walked up and live on screen, I gifted them a bottle of whiskey. So after the stream, them gifting me a bottle of whiskey and me saying no thanks is just rude and petty at that point, isn't it? Anyway, I accepted it. I said, thank you very, very much. And then I took in what they'd actually gifted me. And I was really, really, really blown away. I hope you don't mind. Full disclosure, this is a gifted bottle. I have already tried it. I tried it when I was up there last week. I know it to be fantastic whiskey. However, this whiskey is new to me. This is an almost new whiskey. Why? Because for me, this is elusive whiskey. This is the type of whiskey that you have to be in a ballot system for. And you have to be playing the game. You have to be put some personality behind your sharing of whiskey, share opening your bottles of whiskey, share the fact that you're opening Thompson Brothers whiskey with them, whether it's independent bottles, whether it's the blended Scotch whiskey at 35 quid, the SRV at 40 quid, whatever it is. Share the fact that you're into your whiskey and you're loving it, and you can help participate in their ballot system. I have not done that. I have got this because of a gift exchange. However, this is new whiskey to me. And in the big scheme of things, it's still new whiskey, almost new whiskey. Now, I did get to try this last week, just a wee pour, a wee glass, a wee shared glass. I suspect that the cork is going to make a nice noise, but I can tell by the shoulders of this bottle that it's not going to make much of a glug into the glass. Let's see. Oh, a wee tiny glug. Rounded shoulders, right? So what we have here is Dornoch single malt, the first bottle of Dornoch single malt that I have owned. So it's absolutely new to me. This is their cask 130. It's a 5-year-old. This is bottle 56 of only 139 bottles. Tiny, tiny, tiny output. 58.1% ABV. This is 2018 spirit, bottled in 2024 from an ex-Isla 100-litre cask, which was coincidentally also an ex-Koval cask, so North American distillery there. Matured and bottled in Dornoch. No other details other than that, other than to say that it's floor malted. Big into floor malting right now. Plumage Archer, with the fermentation of 7 days, a week fermentation using Brewer's Mix Q yeast. So there we go. Cracking wee bottle. I mean, it's a 50 cl bottle. I don't know, it masks the fact it's a wee bit like Glasgow's inaugural releases, the early Glasgow releases. They looked like 70 cl. Quite a big punt in the bottom here. 50 cl worth of liquid. Let's have a wee nose. So when I talk about the modern style of whiskey I'm speaking about, that kind of long fermentation style that's starting to appear more and more. Ardbeg have released it, come on, and Loch Lomond have had that extra long fermentation, and various other ones. But a lot of the new distilleries, a lot of the new producers are working in much longer fermentations, and you start to recognize what that actually is doing for the whiskey. And I can think of no better example than this to draw your attention to what those flavors are. This is much more light and delicate on the nose. Because of the Exila cask, I'm looking for a wee whiff of peat or smoke. I'm not getting that yet. Hate it when I don't get the peat, but it's just something I deal with. Cheers, everyone. So if it wasn't for all the kind of firecracker flavor going off there, the arrival was just, it was thick, oily, like almost to the level of as if you were sipping oil, like cooking oil, olive oil or something. Really thick, oily spirit. Wonderful, but kind of offset by lots of kind of firecracker fizz, like a gunpowder fizz as it arrived. Kind of not bringing necessarily spice but there are spices there, but they're white spices, white pepper, white ginger, that kind of thing. But just this big gloopy sensation just rendered immediately into kind of fizz and spice. Let's go in again. Let's coat this glass. 58.1%. It's going to be lots of ABV in here. Lots of kind of anesthetizing my any kind of olfactory system I had, right, to start with. Let's go. Cracking. White fruit, melon, green melon, cucumber. It's crazy that something that this is intense can give up such light, ethereal top notes. But cucumber water, green tea. Normally with the style of whiskey, I would be kind of looking towards a more citrus end of the, but no, it's all kind of leaning towards green. Once more, that oiliness. Oily, heavy, waxy, not in a Clynelish sense, but something that's kind of, yeah, it's quite disarming. It's like it is like very, very pleasant oil to drink. Neck oil. Now, of course, what I should be doing here is sitting here telling you that you're not missing anything. That you can't buy this whiskey. It's very, very difficult to buy this whiskey. I've been drinking whiskey for it's knocking on for 20 years now, and I've never been able to buy a bottle of. It's still even this was gifted to me. If I tried harder, I would be able to get it. Of course, I would, but I haven't. It's difficult to get. It's very scarce, as anybody that tuned in last week would have heard. It takes them 3 days to fill a single American barrel. So a 200-litre barrel takes them 3 days to fill. Very, very scarce liquid, which explains why it's £100 for something like this. But it's £100 for something completely unique. Remember also that this is single cask too. Single cask. Oh my good grief. You know, I sipped a lot of whiskey when I was up in the Highlands with those guys last week. Because of lots of other things that were going on in the background. My brother and I found ourselves together over the course of the weekend. Wonderful time to have him around as well. So we had drams over the weekend, but since Sunday night until I sit with you tonight, I've had nothing. So I think my palate is in a good condition. I think it's fresh. I think it's ready for all of these things tonight. And I was ready to be enjoying this stuff, but I didn't expect to be this jazzed and excited about these almost new whiskies. It is absolutely very, very difficult to get a hold of this stuff, but it's not impossible. And what I would recommend is that you hook up with somebody that does have some and do a bottle share, or get, buy. When you do get the opportunity, you would have to pay a wee bit, but just to understand that they've put a 5-year age statement on this, and it is absolutely hammer blow compelling in terms of a flavor prospect. Can you imagine something like this at 10, 12 more years old? It's just going to be so exciting to see where it can go. I am building to something here. Don't expect it to be a crescendo, but I do have a point to make, because this whole exercise is fascinating to me. Justin Wan is celebrating being a member for 10 months. He's saying, time for work, catch the rest on replay. That's why you're so far ahead that you're not staying up late, Justin. You're getting up early. You're a superstar, my friend. Thank you for your support as a barfly. Thank you for support as a patron. And thanks for just being such a cool whiskey guy. Hope that the day ahead is an easy one for you, buddy. Nice to have you in. Cheers, Justin. Okay. Ginger Genius is saying, you put a lot into whiskey, Aquavite. Reap the rewards, you deserve it. Thank you very much. That's very, very nice, especially when we caveat the fact that this is a gift whiskey. But, I didn't need to open it with you tonight. It fits in with the theme, the fact that it's nearly new, or it's new to me. And I'm not going to tell fibs about it. I'd be exposed very, very quickly, right? This is just very, very good whiskey. This is passion forward, well-made whiskey. Yield be damned. Falscraft is saying, Aquavite and with the Dornoch and others before, another of my personal myths is done with. I often thought that the bigger pot stilts gave better taste, but small ones can do it too. Falscraft, I hope you tuned in last week and you saw how tiny those stills were over my shoulder as I did that kind of tongue-in-cheek 360-degree tour of that distillery. It's tiny. And I think Phil and Simon pointed out how much work had been done at Strathearn as well to kind of, help that whole movement for kind of smaller stills and a whole new way of looking at whiskey production. And I think it's been a fantastic thing. Obviously, the problem is that it's difficult to produce a lot of liquid from tiny stills. Alistair Gray saying, Circumstance now sold out on Royal Mile whiskies. We cleared them out. To be honest, there was probably not a lot of bottles there. There were some, I don't know how many bottles were even on the shelf at the bottle shop up in Dornoch. I don't think there were many, but there was more than one. Listen, I don't think it's going to be a one and gone thing. There will be other things that come along like that. Alistair, did you pick up a second? Eduardo is saying, right, that's me for the night. Have to catch what the tease bottle is on the replay, night all. Don't worry, that it will be available for you. How are we doing for time? We're doing okay, aren't we? An hour and a half in, maybe not so much. Gerben is saying, I love oily whiskies. In my experience, in the finish, the saliva gathers. It's almost as if you get another sip. Beautiful. That's right. It just hangs and it hangs and it hangs. All right, let's move on, because this is the reason I have contrived this whole topic is this bottle. It's not opened yet, and I want to just take in how much I love the aesthetics of this bizarre bottle. I'll just hold it up and let you see it, and then I'll talk about it a wee bit. This is Ballindalloch. This is 2015 Ballindalloch. It's an 8-year-old product. I don't think it has the age statement on it. Let's hold it so that it can focus again. Come on, camera, do your best. So you can see it's quite high ABV. It's north of 60%, 61.7% ABV. This is the sherry cask version. This is also sold through Royal Mail Whiskies, and when I checked earlier this week, this was still available. Probably not now. I don't know how long this hung around for. There was this 8-year-old sherry cask, 8-year-old bourbon cask. I would have normally leaned towards the bourbon cask and would have probably bought that out of preference. But Jason, as I've already mentioned, and a couple of other folk were dead keen on this one. This is a fairly reasonably sized outturn for Ballindalloch. They started to release, their inaugural came out last year. It was distillery only. They've had distillery only bottlings and things like that. I finally decided that for me to get a Ballindalloch, what I'm just going to have to do is get in the car and make the 3.5 hour journey up there and get a bottle myself and come back, much like I would do if I really wanted to get my hands on a Springbank and go down to Campbelltown, right? Make the journey. Well, in the end, Royal Mail Whiskies had stock, and I was able to buy this direct from Royal Mail Whiskies. Not cheap. Ballindalloch are somewhere, they're probably bigger than Daffmill, I think they're about 100,000 litres. I don't know how much they're actually making, but they're a bit bigger than Daffmill, but they are by no means what you would call massive. Back in 2019, I was very fortunate to get a very, very good high access tour of the place, and I was so excited and so impressed, but they only let me taste the new make. Now I get to try the whiskey for the first time, but before I burst this bottle open, what I want to show you is how pretty the bottle is. So this is almost new to me because of how long we've waited for it. Ballindalloch has been in Speyside forever. If you've taken the road into Speyside, okay, to go up to the Speyside, just whether you've been going to see Craigellachie or Macallan or Glenfarclas or doesn't matter where you've been going, on the right-hand side of the road, you've seen Ballindalloch. It's been there for years. You were like, oh, when's that whiskey going to come out? When's that whiskey going to come? Well, eventually, we're here. 2014, I think they're knocking on for 10 years now. This is a 2015 spirit. I just want to just look at how pretty this bottle is. It is neither round nor square. It's somewhere in between, right? If I show you in that profile, it looks kind of fairly traditional with a flat front on it, but it's also quite elegant and rounded. And if you look at it on that, it's quite squared off. What it reminds me of is something mid-century, something 1950s, something very elegant, almost antique, and yet somehow utterly different and utterly modern. Very plain, straightforward, honest label, clear details, no fluff, just nice. See what it says on the back here. Single cask, 2015 United Kingdom. Okay, so we're still in single cask territory. The Macpherson Grants have been custodians of Ballindalloch for 24 generations. This single cask has been chosen by Guy Macpherson Grant specifically for the UK home market. Cask number 114 is a first fill ex-Oloroso sherry butt, which was originally filled on the 12th of March 2015 and bottled on the 20th of February 2024. Wow, just shy of 9 years old. With an outturn of 648 bottles, 89 pounds, I think 88.95. So this is an expensive bottle of whiskey, but let me contextualize that. The Thompson Brothers one I just shared with you, there's 100 quid, okay, super scarce. But that Strathearn that we opened tonight with is 50% ABV. This is 60 odd percent ABV. This has got an 8-year age statement on it, but we've just heard or we've just realized that it's almost 9 years old. Come on, good pop. Yes, good, good, good. I suspect it's going to be a good glug as well. Fantastic. There's nothing in the glass yet. Do you hear that? Love it. Very eager glugs coming out there. Gorgeous colour. Absolutely gorgeous colour. Gorgeous liquid to look at. So this is the first time I've tasted mature Ballindalloch. If anyone's ever given me a sample and I've forgotten, I apologise now. Okay, this is just incredible. There's a theme. There's a very, very potent theme tonight. Anyway, this is different. The first thing that hits is all those ripe fruits, overripe fruits, soggy booze-soaked sponge, trifle sponge. If anybody, I know that it's a very British thing to talk about, but trifle with sponge when it's soaked in booze, my goodness. Madeira cake, almonds, almond marzipan. I'm sucked right into kind of nutty spectrum. Sweet black grapes. A winey note. Black tea. No. Fruit tea. Slightly tannic. Damson jam, that kind of thing. Red currants. So much sharp, tart, slightly tannic, ripe, bright fruit. Fantastic nose. No way you'd nose this and say, wow, that's 60% plus. What is the ABV? 61.1. No way. Really, really looking for... This is the bottle that's been sitting on the side shouting at me for 3 weeks. Maybe more, maybe longer. Yeah, a month. Cheers, everyone. Cheers to my first Ballindalloch. The future of Scotch whisky is in very good hands. I remember 2012, 2013, 2014. I don't know why this story has been thrown into my head right now, but it's just tasting this. Going through an airport and a red box of Macallan, whatever that might have been. And I was buying 2 or 3 bottles to take on holiday. And the guy behind the bar that was pouring the free samples was having fun talking to me about whiskey. I was having fun. And he said, try this. And he pulled out this, maybe it was certainly a high ABV red box Macallan. It's all the memory I have. He pours me a dram of it and he gives it to me after we'd been having a moan, it was more than a decade ago, about Macallan. And he said, try this. And the impact that it had, the texture, the fullness, the body, the weight, the boldness, everything made me want a bottle so much. But the price was completely prohibitive. I bet you through today's kind of the benefit of hindsight, right? I bet you it was probably quite affordable. But that is the memory I've just had. Sherry can leave you, especially Oloroso sherry, which I think it just read out, can leave you with this almost kind of crazy paving sensation on the palate, where it's either the European oak or, but it can just kind of dry things up. But this is not doing that. There is, it's on the edge of dryness on the finish, but it's so fruity, so sweet, gorgeous. 61.1% ABV. It's ridiculous. I would love to be sharing some terrible whiskies with you tonight to contrast it and say, this one's great, this one's too expensive, this one isn't there yet. This is still expensive whiskey. To give you context, this is an 8-year-old whiskey for £89. I suspect that Macallan that I tried 10 years ago probably was non-age statement. I'm not even sure. However, let's leave that to the side. Let's just talk about the liquid here. £89. And it's Royal Mail Whiskies, by the way. I don't know where you live in the world, but I tend to work with Royal Mail Whiskies to do the Aquavitae bottlings, and I don't know of anyone that can ship to more places than them. So when we do talk about parochial releases of whiskey, this is that, and yet because it's through RMW, through Royal Mail Whiskies, not. I think what I'm going to do is pour this alongside something that you would expect this experience from. This is a new distillery. In 2014, 2015, they appeared. So that means in 2013, a decade ago, they didn't know how to make whiskey. They didn't know how to make whiskey as a company, as a distillery. And here we are in 2024 with something like that. And I would say to you, whether you are in whiskey for 40 years or 4 years or 4 months or 4 minutes, you could sip this alongside so many other things and be able to immediately appreciate how lovely this is. Whiskey is not made for experienced palates. Whiskey is always just made for palates. And we are good at telling, regardless of our experience level, when something is genuinely good and something is less good. This is just a wee bit of a fresh cigar, tobacco leaf type thing, wet tobacco, lovely cedarwood, cedar box thing. Glass is empty. Oh my goodness. This is how I think I imagined whiskey looked before I loved whiskey. You see this mid-century box, this styling, this antique look, the elegance of it all. The incumbent producers that have been around for a long time, that are trying to charge us what they're charging us today, they are not terrified that Ballindalloch and other producers like Dornoch and everything are going to take away their business. It can't happen because of the scale right now, but it will embarrass them and it will contrast them. And it will take a significant amount of attention away from them. And it will ask them to step up. Everything I've shared with you is parochial. Everything I've shared with you is super densely flavored, small scale. As we're moving forward, we're starting to see this break being exaggerated. And it used to be just kind of mass market, inexpensive, cheap sipping whiskies and kind of more special stuff. But that is changing now. What we're seeing is that there are more and more producers that are marching down a route that they will rely on marketing to sell their whiskey more. They'll rely on telling stories about their tradition, about how they arrived to be whoever they are today. And they are just going to pay for brand and they're pay for shelf space and pay for ads and pay for all of it. And then there are other producers that are just going to do it by making the best possible liquid they can. And I worry a wee bit about that because we are talking about today in 2024, and for the last 10 years, we're talking about small scale producers, aren't we? We're talking about, 50,000 litres, 100,000 litres, 250,000, 500,000 litres. If we're talking about 1 million litres per annum production, we're talking about a big player. The scale is very, very small. I know that we hesitate to use the word craft because we don't want to be disingenuous to producers that are using genuine craft to make good quality whiskey, albeit on a larger scale. But let's use craft in the context that I'm discussing tonight, or we could call it boutique whiskey style, or you know exactly in this context what I'm speaking about. They're going for flavor. They're trying to make the best whiskey that they can. And they're doing it, yield be damned. The price, that whatever the price is going to be, the price will be. Then we get together as a community and work out whether that is worth it or not. This gives me, in equal quantities, in equal measure, genuine excitement and genuine concern. And I need to share both of those things with you. I see a big, massive, bright red banner coming up, and it's our pal Wook coming in again. I have to just interpret, Wook, that these very, very generous donations are because you're happy and because you're enjoying it. But before your first donation has run out in terms of visibility, you've come in with a second one. I'm going to take this beyond the wee neck there. I'm going to pour a wee drop more because I've drained this glass. Surely something tonight could have just been pedestrian, bang average, normal, just normal whiskey. Oh, that's a good sipping whiskey. But no, that's not what's happened. I'll raise a glass to Wook. I'll raise a glass to Barflies. I'll raise a glass to beautiful whiskey folk. And I'll raise a glass to the people that in the 21st century are making whiskey in a way that we might dream that it was made in the 19th century. Incredible. Cheers, Wook. Thank you. If it made in the 19th century, if they had really, really good quality casks. So we've got this happening now, and it's not mass market and enthusiast anymore. What's happening here is because so many of the enthusiast whiskies are now expensive, super expensive, and I'm not talking about brands like Springbank and things that are overcharged at point of consumption when the distillery miss out on that. I'm talking about where the producers themselves choose to overcharge. Ask too much money, focus far too much on telling stories and far too little on putting fantastic flavor in the glass. But it's happening more and more and more. Meanwhile, we've got these tiny distilleries that can't make enough product, but are in such demand. Why? Because enthusiasts get a chance to sip this magic, and we cannot help but talk about it, to share it, to evangelize, to get excited about, to support, to just realize that the future is good. The problem? Well, I've loved my time on YouTube. Genuinely, it's been fabulous. But I think it's more valuable when we can get together and raise a bottle of something that genuinely we can all enjoy together. Because you can walk into your retailer and pick up a bottle, and I can walk into my retailer and pick up a bottle, and we can talk about how fantastic it is and guide each other on where the quality lies. That's now becoming more parochial. It's becoming much more concentrated, closer to where we can actually buy. It's almost like we've gone back 100 years to when the malt whiskey could only really be purchased, generally speaking, close to where it was produced. So where does that leave Whiskey Tube? You know, where does it leave you and I? Where does it leave this thing that we do? If I'm going to genuinely make the vPub every single week about the things that's genuinely exciting me, the things that I want to talk about, there's a risk that it's moving closer and closer and closer to things that not many people can get their hands on. Shrinking my own audience. I've never chased an audience. I've only ever chased community. That's what I want to do. I want to build community. The views are wonderful. The likes are fantastic. Thank you. But what I actually want to build is people, community, connection, things that's actually meaningful. It's worse. It's much worse. All the companies that are going towards, for the sake of just broad brushing it, I'm sorry, just cynicism, brand, marketing, history, story, trading on the past and not looking really very far forward to the future at all. What's going to happen to them? Because we are going to disengage and disengage and disengage more. They're going to have to spend more money on marketing, more money on embellishment and gilding and storytelling, which leaves less money for putting liquid in the glass. I'm simplifying things, and I genuinely hope that that's not the case. But if the last 5 years is anything to go by, that is exactly what is happening. So, this is the vPub. We try and keep things positive, don't we? We try and put an optimistic spin on things. There are companies out there that are capable of doing the middle ground stuff, of preventing this and helping to narrow that divergence. Deanston, Bunnahabhain, Tobermory, doing a fantastic job, and they have been for a while. Yeah, they have missteps, of course they do, and we forgive them. Yes, their distillery expressions and the handfills and the exclusive stuff is far too bloody expensive. But generally speaking, they're putting out enthusiast-focused, naturally presented whiskey and still being able to appeal to the mass market. Do you need some more examples? Look at Tomatin up in the Highlands. They've got some lower ABV stuff. They're doing some mass market things. They're getting their product in front of the masses, but they're also bringing some banging whiskies for the enthusiasts, whether it's through Tomatin brand or Kuboken. Look at Arran. Look at Lochranza. They've got their barrel select reserve or whatever at low ABV, 43%. I don't think they're going to focus on that. They don't need to even talk about it because their 10-year-old is the absolute perfect model on how to make a mass market whiskey that can make an enthusiast sing or nod their head in quiet appreciation. It's not difficult to do unless you're being ignorant or cynical or you just don't care. It is very difficult for these tiny producers that I've shared with you tonight to step up into that middle space. But with vocal support, with finance behind them, doesn't matter what happens in the bigger whiskey industry, they're so tiny that they can ride that out. With our support, they don't need to spend a penny on marketing. And I'm not just talking about Whiskey Tube here. I'm talking about the flavor that's in this glass cannot do anything but inspire people to go out and talk about how fantastic the liquid is. They don't need to spend money with agencies and things to tell stories and make stuff up and upgrade packaging and things. Almost everything the Thompson brothers do is in a tall round. Here's another producer that is able to do it. Incredible. I started tonight with them, and I'll finish tonight with them. I had a tablespoon of this, and a wee bit more than a tablespoon of this to start the stream tonight. This is Loch Lomond's Steam and Fire, an Inchmurrin 12-year-old. Why am I holding these up? Well, because the easy, accessible, drinkable for everybody to sit and drink together, whether you're in New York or Newfoundland or Nova Scotia or whatever. Talking of which, have we even seen Jimmy Legg in tonight? My goodness, I've not even mentioned Jimmy Legg. That feels very strange. I hope he's here. I hope I've just missed him. Wherever we are, we can raise something or we can purchase something and drink it together. That's what these are. This is a 46% unchill filtered whiskey, a 12-year-old age statement, and very, very affordable. This is unchill filtered 46%. It doesn't have an age statement on it, but this is their Steam and Fire. And I would say, I don't know which one of these I would recommend over the other. With a nudge, with a wee bit of kind of balance, poise, maturity, that kind of thing. The 12-year-old is just a wee bit better. These are mass market whiskies available to everyone, and they are creeping closer and closer and closer to pleasing everyone. It's not difficult. I want you to look at these again as I hold them side on. Can you see the difference in colour? This one is a wee bit lighter. The Stephen Fire is a wee bit lighter. And this 12-year-old is a wee bit darker. Now, that might be to do with a few more years older in cask. This non-age statement is likely to be a bit younger, but there's not that much difference in colour. This is naturally coloured and this is not. We don't know how much colouring they're using here, but they use some. So close, so close. Putting fake colour in Scotch malt whiskey is a crime. Sorry, I can't. I always try and make peace with it, but I can't. It is what it is. That 12-year-old Inchmurren is an easy recommender for me. The Steam and Fire has become something much more easy to recommend in recent times. It's very inexpensive too. Look out for it on offer. How does a producer like that, that's managed to kind of open up their view, open up their target market a little bit, how do they manage to get purchase from people like us? Well, what they do is they bring out something called the Distiller Edition. I'm going to take you through these one at a time, actually. Let's start with the original Chardonnay yeast 9-year-old 2010. Fantastic whiskey. And look at the levels of these because they tend to betray what I'm enjoying. This is our second distillery exclusive. Now, I believe, unfortunately, this is probably only able to be shipped in the UK. But what I need you to do is see what they're doing in order to engage us now to put a toe in the water for the future. This is their 5-year-old blended edition, which came out. This is the edition 2, 300 bottles. Tiny. My goodness, they are tiny. They really are tiny. Edition 3 was an extra long fermentation 10-year-old, 500 bottles. Can you imagine what the future holds? This is their edition 4, 400 bottles. And just in the last week or so, out came edition 5. Now, what they are doing here is they are bringing out very, very, very small outturns alongside mass market huge outturns. Is it difficult? I have no doubt that there is a lot of effort that goes into these. There's a lot of difficulty, a lot of people banging their heads and wondering if it's worthwhile. I know there's a lot of cost involved. Well, let me tell you that all this edition 5 has to be is just be 75% of what all of these other editions were to be spectacular. Let me give you some specs. This is Chardonnay yeast, by the way, on this latest edition. 2015 distillate, 8 years old, 59.1% ABV, one of 600 bottles, so slightly larger outturn. How much would you pay, given everything we've shared tonight, how much would you pay for a 59.1%, 8-year-old, small batch focused, very specific, very kind of craft forward, boutique style whiskey? Does it matter that it's made by one of the biggest distilleries out there? A 16 million litre grain complex alongside a 5-6 million litre malt complex. Let me tell you what the price was for this. £57. Cask strength whiskey, 600 bottle outturn. Juicy fruit, chewing gum. I'm going to leave it in a glass and I'll come into the chat to try and pick up what you say. Pete Head is confirming that we are absolutely legless tonight. There's no Jimmy Legan tonight. Stephen Wilson is saying integrity is alive and well. I'll reach out to Jimmy and make sure that he's okay. Whiskey and Wine Trails Tom is saying, could there be a Loch Lomond Barfly bottle in our future? Tom, it's imminent. It's imminent. I'll try and do something for summertime, okay? Peter Lee is saying, Jimmy Legg is away celebrating their anniversary. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. In that case, I think he's forgiven. Can we do him a wee treat? Let's pick an emoji from the chat. Let's pick a barfly emoji. Let's do something that's very Jimmy leg. I don't know. Let's go with just filling up the chat for Jimmy and Angie's anniversary with the wee whiskey hat. What about that? I'll start and I'll just type happy anniversary, Jimmy. And hopefully he can pick it up in the replay. And I think that might be quite nice that he knows that he's been missed. Karsten is saying, my words, Loch Lomond is doing great value stuff. Loving their regular 12-year-old. Their yearly open releases are just a few bucks above and great too. Whiskey with Molly Bennett saying, so that's Circumstance, Thompson Brothers, and the world's best whiskey that English Sherry cask purchased tonight. Ben, we have to be careful here. We have to... Again, if it's available to you, I understand. I get it. But we're not going for FOMO here. Buddy, you live close to me. We can share these whiskies, right? We can share them. Just as the chat jumps as well. And I want to get rid of that. How do I get rid of the chat? Do I type in here? Do I click on that? I want to be able to see. So there's the chat filling up with heart emojis. Thank you very, very much for giving. Oh, magic. That's fantastic. We miss you, Jimmy. I hope you and Angie are having a great night. And while that's going on, I've missed. What are you doing, Wook? What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, even I'll click like on that. Another super unfathomably, ridiculously generous super chat coming from our mystery man, mystery woman, mystery person, Wook. I don't know what to say. I hope you're a lottery winner or something along those lines. I'll raise this wee glass of the latest. This is my first ever sip, Wook, of this Loch Lomond edition 5. Cheers to you, my friend. Thank you for your staggering, quite frankly, support. What are we looking for on that fruity, bright, apple forward, orchard forward, grapefruit citrus? What are we after with those Loch Lomond releases? Effervescence, fizz. It is like you've sipped seltzer, glucose tablets, popping candy, limoncello, all of those things that fizz on the palate. But it's sweet, not sickly sweet, not cloying. Clean, sweet, some nice sweet lemon, that limoncello thing I mentioned there, coming out now, my goodness. The apple orchard things is going away, so it's kind of sweet citrus coming in now. What ABV is this one? 59.1, I think I said. Scarce, super scarce, £57. We have to dig these gems out as a community. Listen, I knew before I went into this that this was a banging whiskey. And this is what I'm talking about, the point I have to make. Not because I'd tried it before, or not because of my confidence even in Loch Lomond and what they're capable of and what they would be bringing out. Because you, as a community, had already bought this ahead of me and picked it up and bought it and able to come in and say, another banger from Loch Lomond for £57. So we've got mass market, huge scale, supermarkets, specialist retailers, global travel retailer. They're covering it all. And they're turning out these tiny little 300, 400, 500, 600 bottle outturns because it's serving themselves very well. How will this go down? The flavour. How do people feel about paying higher price for paler whiskey. When it's got this much flavour, when it's got this much value, when it embarrasses so many other £60 whiskies, we line up for it. We queue up. Long term, things will not stay parochial. The people that want to go off and just drink whiskey for whiskey's sake, casual whiskies, the people that the big producers that are focused on that are chasing, they were never tuning into the vPub in the first place. The people that tune into the vPub are here for the things that are delicious and engaging and things that leave us silent and staring at glasses and instantly excited to pour out dram for somebody else and share and talk. And the people that have realized how amazing this liquid is. We might not be able to share the same whiskey at the same time all of the time. We will be able to share the things that are happening in whiskey all of the time. That leaves you better informed, better armed, and better prepared. You will not be fleeced. You will not have marketing stories, overselling, overgilding, fancy packaging, taking money from you when it should be just the flavour and the experience that's taking money from you. Andy Wilson has bought me a dram. Andy, you've been celebrating. You've been a barfly for a long time with that pink barfly. He's saying, "Hi Roy, been watching on replay for years. Great to finally catch one live. You superstar. You've been a barfly for years as well." Andy Wilson, it's been terrific to be able to welcome you in from down south. I think you're in Australia as well by the look of that donation tonight. Thank you so much, my friend, for your first live vPub. Cheers to you, Andy. Daniel Williams as well, my pal. I'll see you at the weekend, buddy. 40 months, no words. He's celebrating being a barfly for all of that time. We'll get to raise a wee glass and have a hug over the weekend, Daniel. I'm looking forward to it, buddy. And my pal Ben, Whiskey with Molly, is celebrating being a member for 31 months. Okay, look is me. I can't hide it anymore. I'll raise a glass to that comment, Ben, but it's going to be a glass of water. I need it after all that density I've had tonight. Hey, Ben, when we next get together, we'll have a wee chat and you can put your case forward for the fact that Wook is you. Cheers, Ben. Cheers, Daniel. And there we have it. Quiz at the end. How are we doing for time? It'll be a shorter than normal vPub tonight, but it's still beyond the 2 hours, isn't it? Listen, I hope that it would have been nice for me to turn up with some contrast tonight. Some terrible whiskies and some amazing whiskies. But all of the whiskies I shared with you tonight were recommended, anticipated, excited about, the confident gifts, let's say. They were all going to be nothing other than things I was excited about opening and trying for myself. The fact I can do that with you live and consider these things live and feel comfortable about kind of processing thoughts in front of you is pure privilege. The fact that anyone out there would get something out of it is amazing to me. The folk that have stayed for a quiz at the end, you're in for a good one. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for hanging around. I welcome you all to kind of pull up your socks, strap in, and stay for a wee bit of a fun quiz at the end. Some of the things in the quiz at the end tonight will have been given away earlier in the discussion tonight, but that's okay. Only for those less sleepy that were paying attention, right? Good to have you all still in, and good to see so many people celebrating Jimmy Legg. A wee dram coming in from Graham Fraser as well. He's saying, great to be here, Roy. See you next Tuesday. So that's the Whiskey Club on Tuesday, Graham. You'll be there. Do you know what I need to do, Graham? I need to bully you into joining us in That doesn't need to be Germany, but a whiskey trip somewhere, a festival somewhere other than Glasgow or other than local. Graham, buddy, I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Cheers. Right, let's see how we do with the quiz at the end. Good luck, everyone. It's multiple choice. You've got a 33% chance of getting any question right, even if you don't know it. The pass mark is always 5 out of 10. It starts off easy, gets a wee bit harder. You're only playing against yourself. You only need to share your score if you want to. Good luck, everybody. Right, I want to fix this chat window. There, I've done it. Fantastic. Good stuff. I'll keep my eye on the chat as it's coming in, try and interact with you as much as I can. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying 33% is good. As I teased at the start of the vPub tonight, Greg's Whiskey Guide, him and Menno, Quizmaster himself, put out a wee session last night. I guarantee you the questions that they put out will be tougher than this because at the end tonight. So if you fancy your chances, go over and have a wee go at Greg's Whiskey Guide on YouTube. Him and Menno last night. Question 1. Which of these is a spirit made at Loch Lomond Distillery? I'm going to give you 3 options here. I'm going to ask you which is made at Loch Lomond Distillery. A. Inchfad. B. Glen Douglas. C. Inchmurrin. Which of those are actual spirits made at Loch Lomond Distillery? Thank you for your generosity tonight. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your stamina. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your interaction. I absolutely love it. Blair Stevenson is here. Good to see you, buddy. Mikey Hayes here. Glenn B. Lachlan McKenzie. It's all putting in. Lassie here. Otsman is here too. Rick Johnson is still here, even though I missed his comment earlier tonight. Greg's Whiskey Guide is here, of course. Big Ed, Tom Whiskey and Wine Trails. Denise is playing along. She's saying A and C. Inchfad and Inchmurrin are both. Switching to C, says Rob Smith. And Peter is saying, please welcome Denise Lee as she joined in. I just did that, Frank. Thank you so much for looking out for our star that is Denise. Wonderful to have you, Denise. I hope you're doing very well. And you're absolutely right, too. I can tell you that Inchfad and Inchmurrin are both Loch Lomond Distillery made spirits. So is Glen Douglas. All of them are. So Inchmurrin is a straight neck pot still, high collection strength, I think. Glen Douglas, straight neck pot still too. Inchfad is swan neck. I used to think Inchfad was only peated, but it's peated and unpeated. So yeah, they're all legitimate Loch Lomond made spirits. Everyone gets a 1 to start. Nobody goes home in a donut, right? Question 2. Old Ballintrauen is a single malt whiskey brand made at which Speyside distillery? A. Tomatin. B. Tormore. C. Tomintoul. Which distillery makes Old Ballintrauen? Tomatin, Tormore, Tomintoul. Jerry Miller is saying, oh, 9 more like that, please. That would just be a freebie. There would be no pleasure in that. I just don't like seeing anyone going home and nothing. But bear in mind that sometimes question 1 will not be all legitimate answers. Watch out for the banana skins in the future. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, I've never seen a bottle of Glen Douglas, though. Big Whiskey Bear is saying A, B, C, not sure. Or Big Whiskey Bear, maybe you're answering question 1 and you need to do a refresh so that you catch up with the rest of the chat. Sometimes I notice that that's happening. And Ben Demon Hunter is saying, is Tomatin actually considered a Speyside? No, Ben, Tomatin is not a Speyside. So that makes it a 50-50 if you know your stuff and you say, well, okay, Tomatin's a Highland, and the question clearly is asking for a Speyside. It's only question 2, so it's Tormore or Tomintoul, and it is indeed Tomintoul. Tomintoul make Old Ballintrauen. So for everybody that answered C, well done. We'll swing into question 3 and ask, which of these distilling companies was once a malt distillery based in Glasgow? Which of these distilling companies was once a malt distillery based in Glasgow? A. Port Dundas, B. Adelphi, or C. Kintra? Port Dundas, Adelphi, Kintra. We're looking for a Glasgow malt distillery. Tom in a towel is quite a sight. And that's the way to remember the pronunciation as well. Tom in towel. Desi Vleeland is here. Good to see you, Desi. I hope you're going to Limburg. It would be great to see you in Limburg this weekend. I think you are. I feel like you are. I'm not sure that you are. I hope you are. Chris Barlow is here. Good to see you, Chris. Jimmy Jazz is still here. Fantastic. Boomer is here. Graham Cartwright. That might be the first time I've welcomed you, Graham. If it is, it's nice to have you. Welcome. Daniel Key, my pal Daniel, is here. The generous star that is Daniel Key. Good to see you, buddy. Graham Fraser is saying B. Now Mosque, the knowledgeable gentleman and knowledgeable barfly, and that is Graham Fraser, is suggesting it's Adelphi, and he's absolutely right. Port Dundas was a genuine Glasgow distillery, but it was not a malt distillery, and it doesn't have a whiskey company named after it. Adelphi, of course, does. Easy stuff. It's going to get trickier now, except if you were listening earlier. Kuboken recently released their creation number 6 lightly peated Highland malt, but from which type of maturation casks? Did creation 6 Kuboken come from A. PX casks, B. Chinkapin oak casks, or C. rum casks? A. PX, B. Chinkapin, C. rum. £59, £60 RRP for this one. I can tell you that the malt is 9 and 10 years old that's in it, from what I can gather. Wee bit salty on price, but it's that Highland peaty style. I am curious. Maybe try a dram of that one first. Give it a go. Everybody's saying A, and lots of people saying A and C, including Graham Fraser, Alberto, Simone in New Zealand. Good to see you, Simone. Big Whiskey Bear, Greg's Whiskey Guide, Peathead Molasses, Whiskey with Molly Ben. Lots of people that were listening earlier tonight. No Chinkapin, but yes, full maturation in PX and full maturation in rum going into Kuboken's release number 6. Not tried it yet myself. Let's roll into the picture question. Halfway through, it's always a picture. My pal Eric Waite sent these pictures down, and I hope that I could include them in a future vPub. Well, I thought I'd include them tonight. I wasn't able to meet up with Eric. He probably rolled into town very, very late and very, very tired tonight. That's okay. We're looking at a pagoda ventilator. But I'm not going to ask you which distillery it is. Instead, I'm going to ask you, where was Eric when he took this picture? Was he A, on the Isle of Skye, B, up in Orkney, or C, down on Islay? A, Skye, B, Orkney, C, Islay. Guaranteed he was on an island somewhere. Sugar Kitty is saying, so where was Eric just at? Well, today he spent the day working at Ballindalloch. I hope he had a good time. Jean Kelly is saying 4 out of 4, but the honeymoon is about to end. Stay optimistic. Stay strong, Jean. One Glassman Warner is in. Good to see you, Warner. Fantastic. 4 out of 4. Graham Fraser on 4 out of 4, along with Big Whiskey Bear on 4 out of 4, and James Costigan. James, I think that's a new name. First time I've welcomed you in, buddy. Bob Weiser on 4 out of 4 as well. Keith McDonald on 4 out of 4. Klaus Falsgraf, Blair Stevenson. Look at the 4 out of 4s all over the place. Far too easy. Far too easy. Are we on Skye? Are we on Orkney? Or are we on Islay? I think this is a tough one, but I can tell you that you're a knowledgeable crowd. Alberto's got it right. Going with the crowd. A, he's saying It is indeed Isle of Skye. We are at Torrevik on the Isle of Skye. Could only be Talisker or Torrevik, right? I did get to visit there. I didn't tour. I didn't buy or pick anything up, but very, very pretty. What a place to go and see. Look, lots of people on a pass mark already celebrating their 5 out of 5s. 1 or 2 more just need one, like Lachlan, to get their pass mark. Let's roll into where things start to get a wee bit tougher. Question 6. According to the Malt Whisky Yearbook and Forbes, what is the most visited distillery in Scotland? A. Lefroig, B. Glengoyne, C. Lochranza. So Forbes did a piece on this. I guess it could change year to year, but the Malt Whisky Yearbook has talked about this, and the Forbes piece confirmed that the most visited distillery in Scotland was either A. Lefroig on Islay, B. Glengoyne in the Southern Highlands just north of Glasgow, or C. Lochranza over on the Isle of Arran. Unanimous feedback here. Almost unanimous. Whiskey Slayer is going against the crowd. A or C? Crowd decides C, says Falsgraf. Anthony McGee is saying, made it in just. Sipping on an Aran Amarone. Is Kuboken a good one, by the way? By the way, C. Okay, I can tell you that you made it in on the right dram because it is Lochranza, Anthony. It's Isle of Arran, 100,000 visitors before COVID and post-COVID. It seems to remain the most visited distillery in Scotland. And you've got to take a ferry to get there. Incredible. Great whiskey too. Question 7. Which distillery is alive today in part, due to Glenmorangie's decision to stop making blends way back in 2008? I might need to flesh this out a wee bit, but I'm going to give you 3 distilleries and ask you to think about which distillery is alive today in part because of Glenmorangie's decision not to make blends anymore. A. Tullibardine, B. Loch Lomond, or C. Glenglassaugh. So 3 extremities of Highland distilling. Tullibardine and Loch Lomond in the south, Glenglassaugh in the east. One of those owe their lifelines, or one of their lifelines, to the fact that Glenmorangie gave up the ghost on blends a while ago. Kyle Taylor is here. Good to see Kyle. James Morgan is here too. Fantastic. Bruce Bernard. I just want to make sure I'm catching as many names as I can. Julian Rickman. Big Ed. Fantastic. Where's Roy? Looking forward to seeing Where's Roy this weekend, of course. Oh, listen. Did I forget? Where's Roy is still in. I'm going to reach into the emoji and I'm going to raise all these wee Glencairns because today is Roy's birthday. It's fantastic to have another. How did I forget that? Where's Roy? Roy Ovimere in Norway is celebrating his birthday today. Fantastic. Sorry I forgot, buddy. I did forget. I did say happy birthday to you earlier, right enough, but I can tell you that because originally Tullibardine was redeveloped as part of our retail kind of scheme. They were going to have kind of an outlet retail system, a distillery nearby and everything. Then a financial crash came along and that was not nearly as appealing anymore, right at the time that Picard in France needed a new source for malt whiskey, and they took over Tullibardine and revitalized it, and it's doing great things. We don't talk about it enough on the vPub, but quite a serendipitous journey for Tullibardine. enjoying life up there in the Southern Highlands, simply because Glenmorangie decided not to supply blends anymore. Got that from the Malt Whisky Yearbook. Terrific stuff. Question 8. Which of these Diageo brands was once sold as an official screw-top 8-year-old single malt in the 1980s, but has been revived since as a special release in more recent years? So we're looking for a 1980s 8-year-old screw-top single malt from Diageo, since revived. A. Lagavulin, B. Cardew, or C. Talisker? Good stuff. Where's Roy? Saying blushing, thank you all. So nice to see all the happy birthdays. Glad I caught you. In fact, you're in Norway. You're probably an hour ahead. So, and even if you were in the UK, I think I'd have missed it. Happy belated birthday, my friend. We'll get to raise a belated dram over the weekend. I can tell you that the majority of you have got it right, but some people are slipping up on this wee banana skin here, thinking of the release of the Lagavulin 8-year-old, but no, Lagavulin was originally a 12-year-old. And it was brought back originally as an anniversary edition and then a core range. Talisker was originally an 8-year-old that has since had a 2018 and a 2021 special release as an 8-year-old. And here's the original. Interestingly, go back into the 1980s, you would expect that to be labelled pure malt, but back in the 80s, Talisker was named single malt, and there you have it. Johnny Walker striding, heading left, which is, he's obviously going what the marketers consider forward nowadays. He's heading to the right. Second from last. Tough stuff. Who's hanging on? There exists a subtle design element on a modern Glenlivet label that is a nod to a nearby structure. What is it? What is the structure? Modern Glenlivet rebranding, they incorporated a subtle nod to a nearby structure. That is a structure that's nearby Glenlivet. What is that structure? Is it A, a bridge, B, a castle, or C, a church? Rick Johnson is slipping up. Oh, 2 in a row, fail. Nightmare Rick, you're still on a pass mark. Come on. Question 9 and 10, you could still get an 8 out of 10. I know this one says Ben Demon Hunter. Terrific stuff. Maybe you've been watching the vPub long enough, or you've obviously picked it up on your own whiskey knowledge travels. Where's Roy? Oh, come on, it's his birthday. 8 out of 8. Graham Fraser on 8 out of 8. Fantastic. Any other full marks? Just Graham Fraser, the A student that he is. And Roy Overmere. Falscraft, gut confirmed by the first 3 answers. I saw it on my Nadura. You're probably saying James Costigan. Good to see James Nadura. It's that little hump on the label. So he is absolutely right, says Ben. Whiskey with Molly is not a castle or a church. It is a bridge. Let me try to show you here. You'd think I prepared for these things, right? I've got a Glenlivet label here. And it's not actually on the label itself. It's actually in the kind of negative space between the bottom label here and the top label. But you see this little arch here? That is actually a nod to a Packhorse bridge. I think I've got a picture of it actually here. Hopefully I've included that. And this is the legit. There's one of these in Carbridge as well. If you're traveling north into Speyside, if you go through Carbridge, you'll see one that's similar to this. But this is the one that's on the Glenlivet estate. And that's what the, I think it's 16th, 17th century ancient bridge. long disused, but they still make a wee nod to it on their labels, and that's where it's from. There you go. We move into the asshat at the end. How is Graham Fraser? 9 out of 9. Still a 9 out of 9. Where's Roy? 9 out of 9. We've got at least two. At least two. Fantastic. Asshat. Oh, I would hate the asshat to tear it away from the birthday boy and Graham Fraser. Let's go. It is what it is. Question 10. The combined ages of the original 6 1980s classic malts from, well, Diageo, but back then it would have been DCL. If you combine all of the age statements on the original 6 classic malts, what does it add up to? It adds up to approximately the same as the number of A, Speyside and Highland malt distilleries combined. Or it adds up to approximately the same as the number of B, Irish and Speyside malt distilleries combined. Or C, English, Campbelltown and Lowland malt distilleries combined. Get the calculators out, get the mental arithmetic going. We've got 6 original Diageo classic single malts from the 1980s. All of them had age statements, some of them significantly so. If you add up all of those age statements, you have a number. That number comes out to match approximately the same as the number of Speyside and Highland malt distilleries combined, Irish and Speyside malt distilleries combined, or English, Campbelltown and Lowland malt distilleries combined. What do we have? What say you? No chance then, says James Morgan, but Big Whiskey Bear is going for a 10, a 14, a 10, a 15, a 16 and a 12. Ooh, I like it, Big Whiskey Bear. I like it. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, damned, lost the stream due to antivirus auto update. We'll try to finish the quiz tomorrow. Sorry, Slancher Roy and everyone tonight. I hope that some people drop by, Greg, and try your Tough as Nuts quiz too. Fantastic. Let's see what Roy and Graham are answering. I can't see their answers at the moment. Falscraft is saying, just sipping my unorganized home blend Infinity. Amazing. Is the second tier background peat almost as extinct as the second edition of Hardham Working? People need to play at home a wee bit more. Lost at Amen Corner, Aquavite. A wee golf reference there. An educated guess, C, says Graham Fraser. So we just need Roy Ovemere to come in. What's he going for? What's he going for? Our birthday boy. Why can't I see you, Roy? Did you go early and I missed you? Ah, okay. B. Where's Roy saying B? Guess again. Follow the more experienced gentleman, and you might want to change your mind, birthday boy. No B, says Daisy. No. Big Whiskey Bear. No. Peter Lee. Good guess, Peter. Simone is changing to C. I think that's very, very wise. Julian Rickman is changing to C. Mike Molasses is saying C then. Hoyt Temple, good to see you, Hoyt, my friend. He's going to C. In that case, C. James Morgan, you want a C. Ian Bruce, C. I can tell you that. As who gave us the answers earlier? It was Big Whiskey Bear, wasn't it? Yeah, Big Whiskey Bear said 10, 14. So Oban 14, Glen Kinchy 10. What was the other 10? Talisker 10, Dalwhinnie 15, Lagavulin 16, and Cragganmore 12. He was bang on the money. Remember, Glen Kinchy is a 12-year-old, but it launched as a 10-year-old as the original classic malts. So the magic number is 77. A, Speyside and Highland malt distilleries combined is 100 plus. B, Irish Speyside malt distilleries combined somewhere in the order of 90. So it is indeed C, English, Campbelltown and Lowland Malt Distilleries, 75, the closest to the 77 magic number. So C was the answer we were looking for. How many people hung on for their 10? Graham Fraser, superb, fantastic. Roy, did you change? Did you throw in your B? For a C at the end, buddy. Did you? I think that if it's your birthday and you're doing that well on a quiz, you should automatically be guaranteed a wee 10 out of 10 to celebrate. So there we go, a very contrived topic for a vPub, honestly. But I think you can probably spot that there was 3, 4, 5 whiskies on the table tonight. There's a couple more that I could have enjoyed tonight. There's a couple more, like I had a Balcones in the background as well, a Texas Rye, and other whiskies that I could have kind of shoehorned into this. But there'll be things in the future that we can do. Jimmy Legg has appeared. Jimmy, I'm not dead. We missed you, buddy. You need to go back and see the amount of hearts that went out looking for you earlier. Just back from dinner with my beautiful wife. 32nd anniversary tonight. Had a great time, even though they only had the Winnie 15-year-old. Missed you all. You too, Roy. Well, I'm going to like that comment before it disappears. Jimmy, I'm glad you were able to make it in. That means that I don't know how many vPubs continuously you've attended, but you've managed to make it in for this one tonight. I'm not going to tell you which dram I'm raising to you tonight, but it's probably my favourite of the night, based on the neck port, of course. But there's been some terrific whiskies sipped tonight, right up Jimmy Legg Street. I'm going to raise a glass to the beautiful Angie and the famous gentleman that is Jimmy Legg. Happy anniversary, fella. Thank you for your dram. Thank you for dropping in. Now go and look after the beautiful Angie. Oh, it's so good. So good. Listen, I'm looking forward to next week. Welcome you all back here for Roddy and I to cobble together some kind of nonsense vPub like we always do. So excited. Can't wait to be sitting here together with Roddy again a week from now. Can't even remember exactly what the topic was that we devised. I've got a vague idea that I was supposed to be sending out some samples, but we can tackle that next week when we come back. We can only send within the UK these days, as it turns out. Super excited to see so many of you over the course of the days that lie ahead of us for the Limburg weekend. It's always brilliant fun. Let me catch some of these comments that's coming in before I raise this glass, because there's another banger, says Jean Kelly. Hope Limburg is great. See you next week. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jean. Roman is saying, happy anniversary, Jimmy Legg, and thanks, Roy Aquavite. Great vPub. Next up, Limburg. See some of you Barflies there. Can't wait, Roman. Please come up. I won't recognise you. Hopefully you can recognise me. We can shake hands and raise a wee glass there. Petehead is saying, and with that, I call it a day. Thanks as always for organising. Aquavite, see you. And the other Barflies in Limburg. And to all of you, see you next time. Slancheva. Frank, my pal from the Netherlands. Wonderful to have you. Falsgraf is saying, great one. Thanks, Aquavite. See you next week. Sadly not on Saturday and Sunday. Have a good time. Desi Vleeland, Gerben, Petehead, Jimmy, everyone that Klaus is going to miss because he's not able to meet them this weekend at Limburg. Buddy, we'll keep your stool warm for next year, okay? Rick Johnson is saying, last week was such fun, Roy, but it was great to have you back in the big chair tonight. Have a great weekend in Germany. Rick, thank you so much for your kind words. Jenny Miller is saying, enjoy Limburg, Roy. Desi is saying, good night all in Barfly. See you in Limburg next week. See you in Limburg or next week. Perfect. So you are going, Desi. That's fantastic. Peter Lee is saying, Denise passed with an 8 out of 10. Oh, go Denise. Fantastic. Clit's to say an apartment is tidy, and I even squeezed in a house blend pour towards the end. You've been an efficient barfly tonight, Clitz. Thank you so much. Enjoy Limburg, everyone, says Ben. Tom Franey, that might be a new name, buddy. A tough quiz for me, but a lovely evening as ever for you at Limburg. Have a great one. Superb. Mikey Hay, my friend, he's still here at the end. Thanks, Aquaviti. Thank you, Mikey. Too Slow is saying thank you, Roy, and all the Barflies. Road to Dram Alberto saying thanks for another great vPub. Enjoy Limburg. Maybe I'll make it next year. That would be amazing, Alberto. Hoyt is saying great vPub. Thank you so much, Hoyt. And Molasses saying another great vPub. Ordered that circumstance. Oh, tell me how you got on with it. Please feedback. Enjoy your visit to Limburg. Anthony McGee saying enjoy Limburg, and all the others attending. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Mike. And Graham Fraser is saying thanks as always, Roy. Thanks to Graham. Thanks to all of you. Congrats to Graham. Congrats to Roy Overmere, who gets a 10 out of 10. I don't care what he answered for the ASAT tonight. He gets a 10 out of 10 on his birthday. Thank you to you all. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you next week. I'm looking forward to shaking hands, hugs, raising glasses at Limburg this weekend. If you're not able to make it to Limburg, you will make it to a future event, hopefully. And if you don't, rest assured, we'll be back here next week for more vPub Thursday night fun. And until then, I raise this glass to remind you all that you're very dearly loved. And until next week, Slanchiva. I'm not even sure what that one is, but it's superb.